of the Downtown Design Commission. My name is Justin Brannon, Chair of the Commission. The agenda and documents are located at https://okc.primegov.com/public/portal. You would then select the Downtown Design Commission meeting and click on an agenda item, and the relevant documents will come up below the item. Please see the agenda for additional information regarding meeting procedures and the review process. If you are parked in the Sheridan Walker parking garage north of John Rex Elementary or in the Arts District parking garage south of City Hall, staff can provide a parking violation ticket for you. Keith, please call roll.
Brannon.
Here.
Copeland.
Here.
Black. Here. Thurer.
Here.
Schmidt.
Here.
We have quorum.
Perfect. Item number 2, the agenda, approval of minutes. If there are any questions or comments, if not, I'll entertain a motion.
Copeland, motion to approve the minutes.
And I'll second.
Copeland, Blatt, please vote. Motion passes. Item number 3, cases withdrawn, there are none. Item number 4, continuous requests, there are none. Item number 5 on the consent docket, there are none. Item number 6, case for individual consideration. We have DTCA-24-00077 at 1140 North Robinson Avenue. Laura?
Good morning, Laura Griggs, Planning Department. Michael is out today, so I will, unless Katie wants to, I will present this. On your agenda last month, there was a reference to this project getting ready to come in. You might recall you had the parking lot in, and they needed variances because they were going to come in with these and they weren't going to put the trees in the parking lot. So let me click on this, and I'll just kind of scroll through these. And the applicant is here. In case you don't recognize them, we have, you all should recognize them, Corey Bates. So this is the existing parking lot, and as I said, you all approved the parking lot surface and the landscaping and the stuff that is going to be done for that last month, which will be a vast improvement. And this is up in an area where there are some churches. I think at one point this was called Church Row, if I'm not mistaken, when I was doing some research. And we also have a building that I'm hoping will come in soon, that's across the street from this. I don't know. I keep hoping that it will come in because it has not been fixed since the bombing, and I'm really hopeful that we'll get a fantastic project on that one at some point. We have a building across the street that is in the middle of renovation that I had approved administrative approval for all the renovations that they're working on it, and I'm excited on that project as well. And that is connected to the parking lot. And then this building is south of the parking lot, down on the circle. These is just some other buildings in the area. The one on the left was recently redone and looks, you probably would think it doesn't compare to some of the others, but if you remember what it used to look like, it looks so much better. And I believe it's fully occupied. So I will just go and land here. So the request is to install solar canopy structures. A variance is required from the regulation requiring mechanical equipment to be screened. They're also going to install a transformer and other electrical appurtenances, and they're going to be putting up a metal screen with that. And they're going to install 3 EV charging stations on this site. So in the discussion, you see under regulation is the discussion about mechanical equipment screening. We previously had an interpretation from legal about the fact that solar panels are considered mechanical equipment, so that they would need to be screened. And so we discuss that every time they come in as far as can you see them? I just approved some on the building across the street, but you're not going to be able to see them, so it's totally screened, so you guys didn't need to see it at all. So in this particular case, because of the application, that is why it's on here saying that it needs a variance from that requirement. And so there's discussion in here that talks about the actual structures itself, and the pluses, and I would say there's discussing more of the pluses on this, and I don't need to read all of the words for you. So the roofs of these canopies are the solar panels. And so, correct me if I'm wrong, Corey, but I know there was discussion, you can't really screen them by, well, let's just put a piece of material underneath them and then you can't see them, but then that messes up with how they function, and so you can't do that. So the different means of possibly screening them don't really work because then it affects its efficiency. And it mentions in here how infeasible it is to put the metal panel on that. Solar panels as proposed would be visible from the ground level when viewed from beneath the structures, somebody walking by or somebody in the parking lot. And the way my regulation is worded, it just says screen from view. So it doesn't say screen from view of the street or screen from view of the sidewalk. It just says screen from view, which doesn't give you much wiggle room about saying, well, you can't see it as you're walking down the street, so we're okay. There was some revisions were made, which we appreciate the applicant doing all of that during the process to come up with the final. And I am going to go ahead, I'm just going to go ahead and click on yours so it's there. And I think I can, let me make this bigger. And then do like this, there we go. So staff is recommending approval with the condition that the applicant receives a variance from the Board of Adjustment from the requirement to screen mechanical equipment. And then there is the companion motion you would have to make, making the recommendation to the Board of Adjustment. So I think I might be able to even make that bigger. So you can see on this one where the EV charging stations are up here on the north. And let me pull this over this way. That might be too big, because if I pull it down. And you can see over here is the, I referenced they were going to also install a screen to, metal screen that's going to screen the other equipment that they were going to be installing at this location. So I wanted to get it big enough you can see it, but now you can't see the whole thing. So let me go back this way so you can see it. And so on that note, if you don't have any questions for me.
I do. Is there any consideration, like, and this is probably more for the applicant, but that we're calling the solar panels structure? That way we don't have to continue to have this, you know,
I would have to
variance
defer to the
requests.
person who made the opinion that they're mechanical equipment.
I believe there was discussion about amending our municipal code to specifically address solar panels. That has not come to fruition yet, but we fully understand that if you screen a solar panel, it doesn't work properly. So until we get that fixed in the ordinance, we support a variance for these applications.
Okay, perfect. That's the only question I have. Any other questions? Okay.
Could I?
Oh, you can drive. Yeah, and you just have to.
Yep, okay. Good morning. My name's Corey Bates, 1516 Northwest 36th. I'm here representing 820. We're Oklahoma City-based commercial solar company. Laura did a great job covering the scope of work for the project. Like she said last month, you all reviewed and approved the landscaping improvements for the site. That the civil plan here is the background, represents those updates. So overlaid on top, we've got 4 solar carport structures. Like Laura said, we've got 3 EV chargers along the north side, and then in that northeast corner is where we will be locating our electrical equipment. So there's a PV panel board, there's a panel board for the EVs, as a transformer for the EVs, and then a disconnect for those as well. And so all of that equipment will be mounted on a rack, and then we'll have a 5-foot tall metal screen to screen that from 11th. Included here some images of a recent solar carport installation that we did to help visually communicate what's going to be happening on this site. Some things will be a little bit different, and we'll talk about those, but primarily the structure is a high-performance coated steel structure, columns, beams, purlins, and then the solar panels are mounted on top with a rail-based system. In this example, you can see how the solar panels sit above the purlins. For this specific site, we've made a change to conceal that reveal, and I'll show that to you. Like Laura said, these are bifacial solar panels, so the back of the panels can produce electricity as well. That's reflected off the ground, hitting the underside of the panels. So because of that, you can see the cells, the photo cells, visually. Keep hitting the mic from underneath. The solar rail system includes integrated wire management. So all of the wiring from the panels strung together eventually to the inverters is concealed as much as possible within that wire management system. So it makes for a very clean installation. So on this project, we've updated 2 details compared to those photos. The first is that fascia along the front, all 4 sides of the carport. So here at the top, we've extended the height of that fascia so that it matches the top of the solar panel. And so now that reveal that you saw in the photographs is gone. It's a much cleaner look, at least from the outside, the border of the carport. At the ends of each 4 carports, we also worked with the design team who's doing the improvements for the parking lot to add some ornamental details to the carport structures. So both at the top of the column where the column meets the beam, and then the base of the column as well. And here's a look at what those are. So the intent is to soften the carports with detailing that matches the surrounding context and have them blend in a little bit more with what's already there. We've got the 3 EV chargers along 11th. And let me zoom out here. And then this is a representation of what that metal screen would be concealing the electrical equipment at that northeast corner. And then one of the variances from last month's submission was the lighting requirement. And so part of this scope does include lighting the parking lot as well. We're doing that with LED lighting along the underside of the carport. Sorry, I'm going to scroll back for a second. So in section, it's a linear strip light that will be continuous along the underside of the purlins, both in the center of the double and then right there on the single. And so that light fixture is a strip LED that comes with a housing and a lens. So again, that'll run along the underside of the canopy, lighting the area where cars are parked and people are coming in and out. That pretty much wraps it up. I'm happy to answer any questions or talk about any details.
Any questions for the applicant?
Just one. On the center portion, you have a corner of your solar panel that's actually extending out into that 24-foot clear of drive lane. Obviously, if a car's going to get in here and use it, it's going to be able to get underneath that corner. But I didn't know if there was any consideration for your infrastructure and the protection of it if somebody is driving through this and is in a vehicle that's got a taller component than 9'6". So was there any thought, any questions, comments? Is there anything from the city standpoint that would require that corner to be looked at differently? And I'm asking mainly because I was looking at it from the standpoint of if I drew it and does somebody clip it?
Sure.
It's coming back to me. I was curious about that corner.
The expectation for the cars that'll be entering this lot is that they would be able to make it underneath 9'6". I do receive the thought of, we would want to consider something there to mark the height or just make an awareness.
It could even be signage.
Yep.
That would be sufficient. So I'm thinking an emergency service provider comes in here for some reason to
Right.
do something and clips that corner, and now you've got damaged panels. So
Right.
if it could be marked, I think that would it would protect that.
Yeah, I think we can definitely do that.
Any other comments, questions?
I think it's cool that we're putting PV panels on parking lots and you've put trees where the people are. So don't shade the cars with trees, shade the people with trees. So I appreciate that. And if you're going to do more of this in town, I appreciate the sensitivity to how we're doing it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone else in the gallery that wants to speak on this item? Okay. Am I entertaining a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the application on the basis that the project complies with the regulations and guidelines of the Downtown Design District Zoning Ordinance as referenced in sections C and D of the staff report, with the condition that the applicant shall obtain a variance from the Board of Adjustment from the requirement to screen mechanical equipment.
It's made motion.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, that motion passes.
And then I'd like to make a motion to provide a recommendation of approval to the Board of Adjustment for a variance from the requirement to screen mechanical equipment.
And I'll second.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Okay, next. Next, we have DTCA-24-00079 at 616 North Walnut Avenue.
Okay, let me get back. Okay, so this site should look familiar to all of you, because you were on, I believe, back in, when did we do that? 2022? Okura came before you with 3 separate parcels of leftover DOT right-of-way from the 235 project. And this is the southernmost piece. And all 3 of them were zoned into the Downtown Design District. So this one is probably one of the most complicated because of all of the roads around it. This particular piece of property actually has road frontage on all sides of it. So we're going to be talking about some variances they need because, as you know, we have a maximum 10-foot setback, and that applies to all sides of this piece. So the only way a project could meet that is literally if the building was the size of the property. So the proposal is to build a 60,000 square foot office building, and I've got the specifics in there. They're proposing drainage in the parking lot, which is great because you're starting to see some drainage structures coming in with projects now. So the issues that we're going to talk about here involve several things, but I'll go through these quickly. If you've been in that area, there's this spaghetti of roads and there's all of these traffic signals, and if you're a pedestrian, some of these don't work because I discovered that myself. And And so you have to be careful when you cross, because there is a lot of traffic with people traveling this way. So the road to the right becomes the on-ramp for north and south I-235, and then on the left, that's Walnut, and smack in the middle is this piece of property. And there is currently already some structured landscape planters that exist that are remaining. And so this subject site is on the left there, and you can see how much higher it is from 235. And then this is looking south at the subject site. Once again, you can see 235 on the left. Here's the other corner where there has landscaping that I mentioned. So this is looking east from the corner of Walnut, Harrison, and 6th. Oh, and I forgot. The most recent thing you saw on this was the CE that came in to close and vacate some right-of-way for a street and an alley. So this project has had a lot of things that have had to get resolved. So adjacent, as I said, to the east is 235. This is looking west at the intersection of 6th Harrison and Walnut to the downtown skyline. And then we have northwest is the Metropolitan Apartment Development. And then we have some office development that is in that area. And this one actually picks up one of the Flatiron buildings that I think someone is going to be discussing in this, and looking at the skylines, and this is across the street. So I am going to go back to this. So the items that we need to discuss today are the ones that are going to need a variance. And as I stated, they were going to have an issue with trying to meet my maximum 10-foot setback. So as you saw in the site plan, they're proposing to site the building back along 235, which to me made a lot of sense doing that. And it's actually then the building becomes this fabulous sign as people are driving down. And so they are having the parking as you pull in. There was only one place that they're allowed to put their entrance drive because of all the restrictions in the area. And so typically staff isn't that supportive of, let's put your parking out front, but they're doing some fabulous landscaping, and it will have trees everywhere. And I felt that they laid this out in such a way and worked with a very difficult site so that we're going to end up with a really great project. They've already submitted their application to the Board of Adjustment. That meeting is next month. And so they provided some information about why they designed it the way they did. Now, as you know, parking is not required in the downtown design district, but if you don't meet the needs of what's going in there, you won't have a successful project. So obviously, they came before you with the amount of parking that the developer said we're going to need for this building, and laid it out in such a way that they could make good use of the site. And I believe that the trade-off with the large amount of tree canopy coverage is going to be really beneficial because they're providing us more than we actually need. So because of all of those, staff supported that variance, and I landed on that very early on. We've been discussing this for quite some time. The second thing deals with the landscape islands, and we're starting to see this where we have a minimum requirement of a landscape island has to be 100 square feet and has to be at least 5 foot wide. And so we're seeing parking lots where they put the diamonds at the intersection of 4 parking spaces, which is what they're doing. And I know there's right ways and wrong ways to do it, but if you do it the right way, your tree's going to live, and we're going to get the canopy that we want, and it takes up a lot less room. And so they are proposing some of those, as well as some of the strip areas where they're doing landscaping are not 5 foot wide. So they were going to need a variance from that. And so what I will say, and I didn't have this in here, is we'll probably see some drastic changes in our landscaping requirements as we get to the end of the code update process. So I think what we're starting to see now is people coming in with newer designs, and our code doesn't really address those. So unfortunately, we're going to have people that need variances, and so you're going to see staff supporting them probably more and more because of the fact that there is a way to do it right, and they can do it and take up less space. And so, as I stated in here, they're providing 155% of the required landscape points. So they're giving us an extra 55% over what they're required to do. And I feel that that's a really good trade-off on everything that they're trying to do with this site. And so staff supports that variance request as well. Then they have one for the monument sign at the streets. As you know, we adopted the new sign code earlier in the year. And we're just starting to use more and more of it as projects come in. The height of freestanding signs is now based on street topology. And in the downtown design district, all streets have the same typology downtown. We don't make a distinction on where it's located, what it's next to, what the traffic amount is, what the traffic speed is. And so when you look at it from that perspective, I've had conversations with people, and it's like, well, you're allowed to do the same height of a sign at, we'll say 8th and Francis, as you are at this location. Okay, obviously 8th and Francis is residential area, or right on the fringe of St. Anthony's, and this definitely is not a residential area. So as you can see in the table that I provided you, that their maximum height is 12 feet, and their maximum size is 75 square feet. And what they're proposing is 40 feet at the entrance and 200 square feet. And I'll clarify that, as you could see with the design of their monument sign, it's not a typical rectangular on a rectangle base, and I got letters on it. So it's done more like it's art, like it's a statue. All of that counts. So they're actually, it's being held against them that they're getting creative and coming up with this artistic-looking sign, which is unfortunate. So when you look at 200 square feet, sounds like a lot, but then if you have to look at the design of the fact, it's got the point at the top, and they're obviously not going to have signs. So there's a lot of that area that they're not going to have signs on, but that's how we calculate the area of a sign. So given the location at the eastern extent of downtown design district, adjacent to 235, and the proposed sculpture-like design of the sign, staff supports this request. The other deals with mechanical equipment screening, and I should clarify, it's not that they're not going to screen it, it's how they're going to screen it. Our current code only allows landscaping to be used to screen dumpsters. You saw a similar request when we did the contemporary with screening things with hedges. And because it's mechanical equipment they're screening with the hedge, they're going to have a variance for that. It works. It's probably a more appealing screen because it's green. It's alive. And I think it will blend very well in this parking lot where they're doing all the extra landscaping for us. So that's probably also something that will get modified as we work through our code update. So once again, because of the location of the transformer pad, which is at the northeast corner of the site, it's adjacent to the Harrison overpass over I-235. And because of the expected effectiveness of the landscaping, we believe the proposed screening method achieves the ordinance intent of screening utility areas. But they still need a variance, and we do support that. So I have, my recommendation is for approval subject to the condition that they get all 4 of those variances, as I state in here. And then the second motion that we would need would be to provide a recommendation to the Board of Adjustment for all 4 of those as well, if you're supportive of that. So do you have any questions for staff?
Great job on the explanation. Thanks.
We do have a presentation, and the applicant is here. If you don't have any questions for me,
No? Okay. I don't think we have any questions.
okay.
First off, thank you, Laura. I mean, what a great description of the things that we've gone through on this particular project. I'm sorry, my name is Rand Elliott, Rand Elliott Architects. And it's a pleasure to be here because there's lots of positive things that go on in this room, and we're pleased to be a part of that. So thanks for the description. I only have 2,000 slides to show you today. So I hope that you've got enough time to go through. I'm just kidding. But it's important because you can see the complexity of this site. And so we've worked very hard as a group with a great group of developers and owners to get us where we are today. So I'd like to just start by saying thanks on behalf of the development group, including Andy Burnett, Jeff Johnson, Nick Berry, Cameron Rock, who's here with us this day, Rand Elliott Architects, Lingo Construction. We say thanks for this opportunity. I'd like to just begin by sharing a few key points about the project concept, because there's a reason why we've done a number of things that you're going to see today. The first is that this is the Flatiron District. And we really have focused on envisioning a gateway on the east side of downtown, into downtown. And so that's really driving a great deal of the concept for the project itself. In fact, we believe that this project will tie together our city history, which is the Flatiron District, created early in the 1920s with the original streetcar route. Today, we have the Innovation District. It's continuing to grow, which is fabulous, and the Health Sciences Center as well. And the thought is that this gateway development supports the city's sense of optimism and pride, innovation, and leadership. And that it's more important, it's more than just a building, it's all of those other things. We see this project really as the symbol of the future of that side of downtown. So, in today's presentation, I've literally used Laura's, report as my script because it's so complex. And so it literally, you can follow the report and you'll pick up on the comments that I'm going to make today. So I did that on purpose to make it a little easier to understand. I've got a whole series of 3D images that I think will help explain those as well in terms of how we've solved some of those problems and making that work. And there's not 1,000 renderings, just kidding. But these will help answer the city requirements and the questions and details that we've gone through. I'm just going to hit a couple of highlights, and then I'm going to get into the images themselves. Just some details of interest. The exterior of the building is going to be brushed stainless steel, and I'm happy to pass this around if you'd like to see it. This, the skin of the building, if you will, is called a rain screen. And you're probably familiar with that term today, but that's the way it works. It's a thin metal panel on top of a waterproofing membrane, and the water actually blows through the panels and drains out below. It's absolutely state-of-the-art these days. The second thing, you're going to see the gateway symbol, which is a very important piece of the puzzle that you'll see, and you may now be able to understand why it is what it is. We've done a fritted glass detail on the windows, and fritting means that it's been sort of it's granular, it's been ground, it's got a pattern or texture to it. And we've done that to make the glass and the skin of the building melt together. And you'll see what I mean by that as we go through the concept. The landscaping, we're really proud of that, and thanks, Laura, for explaining it in detail about what we're doing. We see it as a first impression for downtown coming from the east side. So it's more than just an off-ramp or an on-ramp. It functions far different than that. It's really our first impression. And we have referred to it, since we began this project, as parking in a park. And you'll see what that means as we do this, because it enhances this whole piece of property, which is an odd one in itself because it was originally a right-of-way. There are some sustainable features that I don't have great details in yet, but we're going to do geothermal systems in the parking lot, and the proposal is to do solar roof panels as well. So very sustainable, thoughtful building from that particular point of view. And then the last thing I want to mention, and I'll get into this, is that the fourth floor has a deck that overlooks downtown and the river. And so it's a very cool opportunity. One of the things that you saw in Laura's slides was that we are 25 feet higher than the highway, 25 feet off the ground that was originally the right-of-way. And so we're in a great position to see downtown and the river. And this is going to be a wonderful deck out there on the edge of the building that you're going to see, and a great party place. And I was asked to extend an invitation to everybody that you can come and have a party at this location as long as you call ahead. So just wanted to kind of put that out there. Okay, we're going to talk about images, and Laura's going to drive for me. Thank you for doing that. This is our group, if you will. Keep going. Next. I can't help but talk about the historic district a little bit, because I think you need to understand that background in order to understand where we're coming from. This is not a building we're just plopping down on this site. It needs to fit. And so that's what this is. Next. So you've seen this probably ad nauseum. Yes, thank you, Laura, about where we are and what's going on. Downtown is to the left. You see what's going on with the transmission lines, the one entrance point. Laura, can you point to the, right,
like
left a little bit where that concrete is? Right in that area is the only place that we can get in and out of the site. So challenging is a great word to use here. So we're swinging around. This is important to see because the darkened area on the right is the slope from the property line at the top to the to the highway. It's 25 feet of fall. Next. Yeah, here's a good place to see the curb cut coming into the site. And then the corner, thank you. Looking across the site, obviously there's the curb cut again. Someone said, Rand, is that you on a bike? And I'm sorry, it's not. But it just gives you an idea about what's going on with the site and what's there, and an opportunity and a challenge with this site. Next. Here we are. You see the car on the left, gives you sort of a sense of scale, and the sloping site. Next. Okay. So I'm going to start by talking specifically about, because this is following the script, if you will, or the report, is the stainless steel cladding. You have a sample of that going around. What you're seeing is the horizontal lines. The panels are follow those lines. That's where the rain actually rains in, and then it drains at the bottom. Again, very sophisticated. This is the front door, if you will, of the building. And there are several things I want to point out as we go about this. Number one, we need to talk about signage. This is the 12-foot sign. The sign that's here at the parking lot entrance, main building entrance, is there as a piece of sculpture. It then doubles as a sign, obviously. It helps us and visitors that come here, because there's a bank on the ground level, to know where the front door is. And so it has multiple reasons and purposes. The flowers are there to greet people and to make a really nice approach. The tree cover, as Laura said, we're 155% with landscaping and so forth, which was intentional from the very beginning of the project. On the upper right, the BR is Berry Rock, and that's the outdoor space where you're going to be partying, and it gives you a really nice sense of what's going on there. But it gives them a space to be able to do outdoor events. It lets them have a space to conduct business in a very special location. And I want to mention something about the signage itself because it's important to know this. Because the building is a light color, we need to be able to show and see the lighted sign both daytime and nighttime. In the daytime, it's black. At nighttime, it's lighted and it's white. And what that comes from is it's a special acrylic that allows us to put a white dot and a black dot, and that illuminates accordingly. So you'll see that as we go through. Next, yeah, there you go. I'm sorry, can you go back, Laura? I want to make sure, yeah, everybody understand what's happening here? Okay, very good, next, thank you. This goes around the corner, and you're seeing the special frame that we're talking about. We haven't quite found a name for it yet. We're calling it the Gateway and a number of other things. But if you look at it, it's a flat iron shape, and that's intentional to tie to the historic nature of the site itself. It's to add drama. It's to add excitement about being you're about to enter downtown from an eastern location, and wow, what is that? This must be a cool place to live, work, and play, and so forth. And so that helps us do that. We'll come back to the enclosure.
Thanks. I was going to mention, don't forget to look at that screen down there.
Yes,
so you can
exactly.
see the landscape screen.
On the left-hand side, you're going to see this in more detail, but you're seeing the screening, if you will, example, and that happens to be one of the pieces of equipment. We've got a generator in there, and we've got a transformer in there. And so this gives you a little bit of an idea. This is a holly bush, and I've got a picture of that here in a second, but it gives you a little bit of an idea. Not only do we not want people in the building to look out and see it, but obviously we're screening it from the public view as well. The gateway frame is lighted, again, as a symbol of good things going on in our community. Next. So I'm just we're kind of flying around, if you will, the building itself. You're seeing a couple of things. The sloping part of the site is to the left. We have a hedge along there to give kind of an edge to it. And you're seeing the gateway frame on the building. It's symmetrical. It goes on both sides, kind of wraps it, and creates the symbol relationship to downtown and other spaces related to the Flatiron Park. Go to the next image. There we go. That's a better view on the right of the enclosure. The hedge is 6 feet tall. It has a gate that you'll see in a moment, but it's intended to obviously make this a pleasant experience, if you will, as well as a useful and important experience related to the city requirements. Next, yeah. Keep going. You're seeing that the building takes on a different kind of coloration as you move around it, so it really does add energy that's ongoing on a daily basis. Next. So again, another idea for how the sign works. This is the highway side. This is the sloping site here in front of us, and there are the letters are 3 feet tall on all sides. They vary in terms of their position as far as that's concerned, but it gives you a little bit of an idea of how this works. You see a hedge along the base, again, to kind of give us a little bit of a barrier, and the gateway frame. Lighting. One of the things that we're going to talk about here in a minute, and we'll have to look at that, but because this side is sort of unprotected, it's the highway side and so forth, we have had some concerns about security. And so we've done some lighting. There's actually lighting in a little section right along in the face of the building, as well as the lighting in the building. And you'll see how that comes about as we go through this. We don't want surprises from others. Gives you a little bit of an idea. You're looking at the building from the east side. There's Prison Bank's sign at the top. We've added one really nice detail on the right is we actually have one of the exiting stairs, the far stairs, has a glass wall to it. And so you're actually going to see people moving up and down the building, which will add some really wonderful energy to it from the highway, and sort of matches the movement of the highway and the movement of the people. This is obviously the south side of the building. On the ramp side, parking lots on the left, of course. And we have this opportunity on this corner here on the right to have a little outdoor courtyard. And gives you an opportunity to be 25 feet off the ground, being able to watch the cars go by and look at the Health Sciences Center and the Innovation District and all that, and all those great things that are happening. Wonderful shade, opportunities for, a 4th of July party or something like that out here, but still protected, not so much visually, but certainly being able to throw a Frisbee or a ball or something and won't roll down the hill and go out into the highway. We're actually around on the entrance side. This is the Walnut Street side coming into the building. There's a couple of things to show. The 12-foot sign is ahead of us, right ahead beyond the car, identifies the front door. On the left, this little building is called an ITM, which is an interactive terminal, if you will, like an ATM, except with today's technology. And you'll see in the plan in a moment why it's in that position. But it has an interesting element in that it feels almost like a piece of sculpture in the parking lot. No, next, thank you. This is the deck on the 4th floor. This is looking south, obviously, has a drain-through floor in it, electrical. You can work out here, you can have lunch out here, you can do all those kinds of things. Next. It's looking back towards the building as you enter back into it. Next. Sort of a drone view of it. I wanted to show you the signage, that it's a can light, if you will. It has depth to it. This shows it in black as far as that's concerned. So and now that you've seen kind of those details, we have an aerial view. You can see what's going on above the entrance over on the left coming into the site. There you go. Thank you, Laura. And it literally aligns with the main entrance into the building. You can see how dense the trees are. That's a very important piece. But the thing I wanted to illustrate in particular here is that there's a little piece of ground that we call the smile, which is on the bottom side. It's between, Laura, I'm sorry, go to the right, down, right there. So if you go horizontally, you see that little piece of dirt right there. That's retention space. And so we have incorporated retention in 2 locations on this site, there and then up where the serpentine driveway is. Those are both locations, and you'd have to see the grades and stuff to understand it exactly, but we've been able to do water retention in both of those places, as is requested by the city as well. You kind of get a sense of where the main entrance to the building is here. You see the little courtyard to the right. The green grass, the green grass on the right slopes down to the highway itself. This is really a great way to understand kind of what's going on, what your entrance experience is going to be, and so forth. And on the lower right, you see the Berry Rock sign. That's the monument sign that Laura talks about. I think we have another image of that coming up. But it's very important, in order for this business to be successful, there has to be some opportunity for identifying who's there. And it's not going to be a big fancy sign with 1,000 names on it or any of that sort of thing. It's there for key tenants to be identified so that you know where you are. This is an odd location in downtown. You don't expect a building to be in this location and so forth. And so the sign and location of the sign make a really important difference in terms of finding your way to this location. Next. Yeah, so this little smile piece I'm talking about is down here at the bottom. That's water retention. This gives you a sense of the highway side here. You can see the hedge actually goes around, makes the corner for the outdoor space, as well as kind of defines or finishes the site relationship.
Oops, sorry.
That's all right. So this is a good view to show the transformer and generator locations right there. This is along Harrison, actually, and from eye level, it's virtually invisible. This sort of orange color is the existing landscape that's there. It has been for 20 plus years or so. Yeah. Gives you an idea of what we're talking about in terms of how the signage works. And we really did envision this as a piece of sculpture first and a sign second, but it's nice that it will be able to be both. Next. Thank you. You'll have to come for the tulips. Entrance is simply and importantly defined. You can see that the sign actually is perforated, so it has a moire effect from it, which has an artistic quality. Next. That's what it looks like at eye level. Thank you. Main entrance. The bank will occupy the entire ground level. Sidewalks was another important thing, and we've got sidewalks everywhere we can put sidewalks. There's a sidewalk that'll be along the Walnut Street side as well, and then certainly in front of the building. This is obviously the outdoor deck. There's the white lettering. And then this is a very important one because there's always conversation about these. These are the little environments for parking, if you will, and so this gives you an idea. But we really feel like that these add up or add to the whole experience of parking in the park idea, and that it's softer, better, more friendly. You can park under a tree and get some shade. There's a whole series of things that we all deal with in Oklahoma when we are out in our automobiles. Next. This is the east side. This is the little outdoor courtyard area that we're talking about. You can see our pole light actually creates opportunities for lighting out here. You can see the hedge to the right. We've got a sidewalk to the left. This is an interesting point because we're putting this light along here as a security light so that we don't have unexperienced or unknown folks showing up in this location. So the lighting, we've spent a lot of time and effort trying to find a way to deal with a secure situation. You know, is it perfect? Maybe not, but what it does do is it gives us some flexibility and some ability to control the quality of the light around the perimeter of the building. Lighting is our specialty, as many of you may know. You can see a little linear LED light in the bottom of the canopy that lights that space at the entrance. Everything has an opportunity to have design, and it's the dumpster enclosure. And so we don't think of this as the dumpster enclosure, even though that's what it is. We think of it as a piece of art that's a part of the composition of the whole site. And so that's what you have on the left. Our bicycle rack is on the right. And so even as you leave the site and you drive out to get on the highway, it's a very pleasant experience. I mean, you don't see something that's the back of the building. This building doesn't have a back. It has 360 degrees of exposure. Next. So again, another example of using the holly for screening. And you know, we've done it a lot. If you've been around the Chesapeake campus very much, you would recognize that it's almost completely full of holly, and we used it to screen mechanical units there for 25 years. Again, we're back to the entrance. This is an aerial view. The dumpster is missing at this moment, but that's the dumpster enclosure. There's a pair of doors. The doors will have wheels on them so that they don't bury themselves in the parking area. I mean, we've tried to be very, very careful about things like that help the owner to maintain it and so forth, as well as to make it look good, because this is the gateway into downtown. Next. This is real holly. So if you wanted to see what it looks like in a comparison, this is real holly. I think we have 2 images of this. You can curve it, you can cut it, you can trim it, you can do any number of things that you want. There's one more image, I think, Laura. And you can just get a sense of how dense it is, and it literally can be a wall where it needs to be a wall. There's the gate into the enclosure for the mechanical equipment. There's the equipment. We've done all the requirements with OG&E and so forth in terms of access and whatnot. Final image, I think I was trying to make a comment about the retention again, but I think I've done that. We've actually got retention where the serpentine wall or drive is, as well as this south side. Okay. These are just daytime things showing you what it is. Okay. I just want to leave you with a little bit of history now that you've seen our proposal and so forth. This is August Hierding. And August Hierding built and owned a company called Hierding Brothers Meat Company. And it's at 5th and Harrison in downtown. And you'll see that it's a flat iron building. And we had 9 flat iron buildings between the railroad track and Lincoln Boulevard historically. And so we were fortunate to have photographs of August here and the business that he built. And the fact of the matter is, his business was on the ground level and his family lived on the 2nd floor. Next. This is what it looked like for about 25 years. It was completely burned up. But things have changed happily. This is still what it looked like early on. And here's what it looks like today. And so this is our inspiration. The Flatiron District, the fact that we had this history, the fact that all these Flatiron-shaped sites were there at the beginning based on the fact that we had the trolley car and so forth. And so we feel like the homage, the connection to all of this just makes this really rich and important. That's my presentation for today. I'm happy to answer questions.
Any questions for the applicant?
I have one. Laura mentioned the sign in the entrance is 12 foot and the other one in the street is 20. The sign in the street, one is 20 and the other one is 12.
Right, the one at up at the building is fine. It doesn't need a variance for size or height, and they're allowed more than one because they're allowed one for every 200 linear feet, and they have a lot of frontage. So that was one thing we did early on was they had to divide those signs up and give me the math so I could do the calculations logically in my head to determine the size. And so the one at the building is fine. It's just the one at the street is too tall and too big.
Okay.
To meet the 12-foot height, yeah.
Yes, it's fine. And I see the seating is no interferes the vision of the cars. And the other question is the material. Is any reflection for the sun in the 235?
Recommendation for the sun?
No, I think you're asking about
The material in the
There's a
building.
concern that there's going to be, the sun is going to be shining off the building.
right.
And impacting traffic.
Sure, great point. We had to do a third-party review through this process with a group of Dallas architects, and we went through this very conversation. We'd always suggested that we would do the material has a brushed finish, not a reflective finish, and they were absolutely happy with that and said that's a great solution.
Okay, thank you.
I do have a follow-up question for the signage. With the 2 signs, would both of the signs fall under the landscape ordinance?
That is no longer required.
That's not required anymore?
Freestanding signs are no longer required to have landscaping around the base. That was removed with the adoption of the new sign code.
That is a bummer. We need landscaping on our signs. Yes, anyways, the signs would be great to have landscaping. In the past, it also required evergreen, which is why I had a question over the tulips, but if it's no longer required, I can't really pressure an evergreen material around the signage.
Well, because the previous requirement was for within 10 feet.
Yes.
They had to have a certain number of points.
Correct.
And that the points were based on the size of the sign. So if the sign was 100 square feet, they had to have 50 points of landscaping based on what our code provided. And so people would usually look for, where can I get my biggest bang for my buck and only plant 2 things? But you're right, there used to be a requirement, there is no longer a requirement.
Okay. I do have a couple other questions over the landscaping. On the landscaping plan, I do have a really big concern over plant diversity. Right now, the landscaping plan only shows Chinese pistache as your shade tree, Nellie Stevens hollies as the evergreens,
Right,
and then there's a purple leaf winter creeper for ground cover, and then you have
Right.
turf.
right.
Plant diversity is super important for plant health. So I was curious if that's just a placeholder or if that is the intent to have one species, straight species for the shaded trees, one straight species for all your evergreen trees, et cetera.
The early discussion was, with our landscape architects and so forth, was about simplicity, that this is an unusual site and so forth, and the conditions are unusual, and the simplicity of the landscaping, something that would obviously live and grow and prosper and so forth in that location. The wind in that place is incredible, and so they need to be tough materials. And I'm not a landscape architect, so I'm not sure I can answer your questions, from a species point of view or something like that, but this was well received. And we had good conversations about it, and we felt like it was a good solution for this particular site.
Sure. Well, as a landscape architect myself, I would not approve this because I'd be too worried about disease. Because one disease comes through, then all of your trees are taken out of that specific species. There is a good rule of thumb, if you'd like to kind of pass this along. It's the 10-20-30 rule. 10% max of any species, 20% max of any one genus of
Okay.
species, and 30% of any family in one design is a great rule of thumb
Okay.
when designing. I understand it's very cool to have the same height and color and texture, like that unified look. I do believe you could still achieve that through different plant species. The Chinese pistache has a great fall color, and we have many other wonderful hardy
Yeah.
trees
It's
in
beautiful red.
Oklahoma.
It's just gorgeous, yeah.
Yeah, that I think really need to be implemented here, because I'd be very fearful for
And that's
the
what we
owner.
have.
Yes, you have Chinese
Okay.
pistache right now, but
Okay.
it's only Chinese pistache. I would like to see different tree species. It'd be healthier for the site. The other thing is the small tree wells. Can we talk a little bit about your islands
Sure.
in your parking lot, like their sizes? The other thing I'm really concerned about is the tree health in these smaller islands. Like, what is the drainage planned for? Is there structural soil? How are they going to be irrigated? That would also play all into this.
Yeses to all of that.
Okay.
There's been serious consideration given to all of these considerations. We have no desire, I mean, we did the Heartland building down here on Broadway, and we had someone drive through the building, through the glass, and now we have a short tree and a big tree. And so we're very conscious of that kind of thing. We're happy to look at some adjustments if that's a deal breaker, I guess, in terms of doing it, but I can assure you that we're intending to make this an exemplary project.
Sure. Do you know
The one thing I would
size?
say is they're only required to do 2-inch.
2-inch
caliper.
tree? That's totally fine.
Yeah, and they're
I'm fine.
proposing 3, so, and I was just going to, point that out.
A 2-inch caliber actually will be healthier. The smaller they are, that's why that requirement is there, because the tree is found through research to be a healthier tree when planted and having a better success of growth when it's a smaller caliber tree, which is why the 2 inch is what's required. But I do want to know what these sizes are, because this is really tiny on our screen. Do you know the size of the parking island? Is it a 5
I
by
think it's
5,
5
6
feet,
by
I think
6?
it's 5 feet on a side, if I'm
Okay.
not mistaken.
Okay.
which is pretty much a standard thing, and that's just from memory at this moment, but I
Correct.
believe that's what it is.
That's what it
I
visually
mean,
looks like.
there was a discussion early on about what the Wheeler District did, about structural soil and some things like that, and we listened carefully to that, thought that was a good thing, and because it had been successful, we would do a similar kind of thing here.
And that didn't go to you, obviously, that the Riverfront Design Committee still existed at the time that went before them for the 2 new apartment buildings in Wheeler, and they were doing the same diamonds, which is what he's referring to, so,
Did they use structural soil
yes, they did.
within?
That's the first time I heard about that conversation. I had never heard of that before, but that was part of that conversation, yes.
Yeah. The structural soil is typically, it is recommended to go out the extent of the mature tree canopies. So if Chinese pistache trees remained in these islands, especially the small diamond islands, I would recommend your structural soil have a limit of 20, 30 feet off of that.
I'd love, I mean, if you could email me something and make these recommendations, I'm
Will it
happy
be
to.
in-
Yeah, she can forward stuff to me, and I'll be glad to send it on to you, Rand.
Sure.
Okay, thank you, Kayla.
Rand, would you say
Our
that
goal,
these,
our goal is success. That's
Yeah,
the best thing
yeah.
I can say.
Rand, would you say these tree wells are similar to the museum you did on 13th and Chartel?
Say again?
Would these tree wells be similar to the parking lot you did on 13th and Chartel?
At the Contemporary?
No, the historical museum on 13th and Chartel?
Oh, I'm so sorry, that's
I know
right.
it's outside of DDC, but
Well, no, it actually isn't. It's in me.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, it's the last thing.
I know about 12, 15 years ago you did that parking lot, and there's tree wells in there, and all those alliums are still doing really well.
They have done well, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm looking at a street view right now, and they look great.
Okay, thank you.
On your project,
Yes,
similar detail?
yes.
Okay. Do you have any other questions, Kaylee? 'Cause I've got
Yeah, I
some.
do. The evergreen screening around the mechanical space, that exterior, I love that idea of it being green. The Nellie Stevens will look a little wonky at first unless it is purchased as a tree that has been specifically grown to be a screen wall.
Right.
So I was curious if y'all were going to go that route or if y'all were going to self-trim. And the reason I ask is because it will be bald on 2 sides for a long time until once it's trimmed up, basically. But there is a product out there, I can't remember, I'll figure it out what it is and I'll share it with Laura, where you can actually buy these plants where they are trained from the beginning of their life to be a screen wall. And they have a really good success rate.
Great.
I've used them before.
That's
so-
fantastic. It's great to know that.
Okay, great.
I wish I brought my landscape guy, but I didn't realize I was going to try to answer questions that is not necessarily my
You're good, you're okay.
point of view.
Okay, we can share that information,
Great.
yeah.
Happy to do so. Chesapeake has been very successful, the Chesapeake campus. We did all that, and Ty Hartwig was the landscape person on that, and it's been hugely successful. Aubrey did not allow motorized equipment to work on that site, and it was all hand-clipped. So pretty amazing, frankly.
I'm done with my questions.
Could you go back to that rendered site plan, Laura? There's back 1 or 2. Yeah.
That one?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
Rand, tell me, when people are coming to this building, probably by vehicle, where are they arriving from?
Right. It's on Walnut. This is the only way that you can get to it.
And how are they getting to Walnut?
How are they getting to, well, it
Down
goes,
there or-
yeah.
Probably from the highway from the north, exiting on
You
235.
can go into downtown and
And
so
if they're
forth.
coming from the south, they're probably exiting on the Walnut and coming from the northeast, probably.
Right.
So most of the vehicles are arriving from the north. Yeah. And so we've put our large vehicles-oriented sign on the south, where most of the traffic will not be arriving from.
Is it counter to what your
Seems-
intuition tells you?
Seems counterintuitive to put the large wayfinding sign, how to come visit us, you've said, hey, we've got a particular site, it's strange to approach. Where are the people coming from? And we've put our big sign on the southwest corner, but everyone's coming from the northwest.
It's about how much, what space do we have to do it?
Sure. And all I'm trying to say is if we're granting a variance for a larger sculptural sign that it feels a lot more suburban in scale, it seems like it's advertising signage, not wayfinding signage. And we've got a lot of advertising signage on the building already with significant 3-foot tall signs for, substantial companies that are investing in this development. But it seems like granting a variance for a sign that is more advertising than wayfinding seems peculiar to me. Anyone else seems?
So you're saying that if the argument is that this is to, like you said, wayfind the building, and the majority of the cars are coming from the north, then why isn't the largest sign on the north?
Yeah, because the sign's on the south, so it's really just telling people leaving Oklahoma City, hey, here's some people that you're seeing as you leave, not here's how to get to the building.
If it's helpful at all, this is the site that the client requested. So that has a pretty high priority, I think, in terms of where it is and what they expect out of it and so forth. And so that has a lot of influence on this location. It was very hard to find something that would be available, visible, and so forth that seemed to, I guess, solve the problem as best we could. Is it perfect? Maybe not. But the idea was that we need to satisfy our client. We've got a bank on the ground level and so forth, and this seemed to solve those questions.
I think for me, I struggle to recommend a variance when it doesn't seem like it's wayfinding sign. It feels like it's advertising sign.
I understand completely. It's one of those things that, as an architect, you deal with all the time about, how do we do this sign? How do we make it not a sign, but make it a piece of art, but it also functions as a sign? And so this is our attempt to do so.
The next question I have is, you said something very interesting in your presentation, which was when people leave the building and get in their car to go back out to the city, there's like a very, you've considered all of the elements, the trash enclosures and things like that. But the one thing that I feel this building is lacking is connectivity back to the city. So there are sidewalks around the site, there are sidewalks around the building, but there's no sidewalks connecting the street to the building. So if I was to walk to this building, I do have to walk through the drive aisle to get to the front door of the building, which I find not a very urban idea. And additionally, if I'm working for Berry Rock and I want to walk to Jimmy John's to get a sandwich, I have to walk right through that drive aisle again. So I think it could improve if there was some pedestrian-oriented porosity from the urban realm back towards the building. So some sidewalk connecting back to the streetscape. I think that could help.
You're saying from the front door to Walnut, for
any
example?
of the sidewalks that are surrounding the street, because you've created a hedge condition that you can't walk through. So the only way to walk from this building to urban Oklahoma City is through the drive aisle.
Well, for example, on the north, that doesn't belong to this site. That's belongs to somebody else. So we can't really put a sidewalk through that without going through some sort of machinations to get approval to do that, I guess, going north across here, because they don't own that property.
But you touch all of Walnut.
Yeah.
Can you,
Sure.
I need you to come up and
Yeah.
identify yourself, please.
Cam Rock, nice to meet everyone. But a couple things I just might add into response to that. I think it's a great point, and I think we had a lot of careful conversation and consideration about the specific site and kind of the pedestrian danger that it actually does pose, right? Because there is some risk if you're trying to cross that street, you're kind of playing Frogger, There's cars go down Walnut at a pretty fast pace with some not much regard to the traffic laws I've seen, specifically myself, right? So I think, from where the site is and the difficult position we are in, it is kind of a driving site. It is a place you kind of need to get to. We do have those, obviously, sidewalks on Walnut with the traffic crossing to exit there, but I think those specific delineations are very important for the safety of people that were walking to the building. That way, unless we maybe had some help from the city of another traffic light with another walkway kind of at our entrance. Without that, it does have some difficulty of people getting back and forth. So that'd kind of be my address on that. And then to Rand's point a moment ago, Eric, in regards to the signage, on the northwest corner, where you see the brown area, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that is actually an homage to the memorial bombing. I think it's kind of a garden memorial. I think so. With the signage that we have, we went into some demarcation of people being able to see us from the north perspective. We didn't have the ability coming from the north. We didn't have the ability to do that because of that location of that's not our area to do anything on. So people coming from the south, it does give them that ability, and then people coming from the west side of downtown to come visit us, especially with the bank location being a retail center, there will be quite a bit of traffic coming in from just the people that live downtown for deposits, interactions, and things of that nature. So it does give us kind of that ability to have that forward facing on the area that we're allowed to have it on, as opposed to trying to plant a sign on that north side of people coming off the 10th Street exit or 6th Street exit, because we can't put anything there. So that'd be a couple of my kind of feedback on a couple of those questions, which are great questions. So hopefully that is clear.
You're finding yourselves into the quandary quandary that we've had for a year and a half, which is trying to solve all of these things. I mean, we have a site that's 360 degrees exposure, all of these things. It's been a very challenging and difficult thing to do, to make everything perfect. And this is as close as we've gotten so far.
It is a tough site. and to Rand's point, we have been, a lot of careful considerations and conversations for about 2 years now, from the first time I called you. But yeah. So any other questions, happy to assist. Thank you.
I do have one more question. And sorry, it's landscape related again. The calculations say that there's zero required landscape or zero required parking points. Is this?
Well, okay, so let me kind of explain that.
Let's talk about that.
We'll go back to the math. Let me get to that page.
And the reason I ask that is because, one, I want to know why. Two, that would make the landscape points different.
So,
because it's 2 points per spot versus this additional parking, which is shown as 1 point per spot.
but there is no site calculations required in downtown. So we
There's no
literally,
parking calculations.
so it's just the parking ones. So
So it's all
I'm trying to
additional.
look for the sheet. Where is the sheet?
It's in-
Oh, there it is. Landscape points, 47 times 15. Parking. Oh, I see what you're saying. You're saying if they're providing 104 parking spaces, if we multiply that by 2, that's 208.
Yeah, versus 104 times 1 at 104.
Right.
It's double the points.
Right, but, so I would agree with you, but if you look at the total points they provide, they're still way over. And,
And they would not be over.
Oh, they're not?
If it was a required parking calculation.
there is no required.
Okay.
So there's no,
then it's totally fine.
so there's no required parking, so that's why it gets really gray. And so in downtown, they don't have to do site points, they just do however many parking spaces they give us.
1 point.
That's what their calculation
Okay.
is based on.
Thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah, it just,
Okay,
No
thank
problem.
you.
So I guess where I currently sit is, it's a very difficult site to develop, and I think it's extremely important that it is developed. And I love that we've taken back right-of-way from highway and put developable land that is a tax asset
Yeah.
and puts people downtown. So first of all, thank you. That's very great. I think it's a high-quality product. I recognize that some variances are required to allow parking in this location because it is a bit of an island site. And I also recognize that you can't build a 60,000 square foot floor plate, and so you're gonna have some setback. I'm good there. I struggle with allowing a taller sign just because it's sculpture, and it seems like it's not in the correct location. And I would like to see some sort of meaningful pedestrian access route from the sidewalk to the front door of the building, so that people walking to the building can get there safely, not through the drive aisle, and people leaving the building can get back to the public right of way, not through the drive aisle. Usually downtown, we don't put the parking lot in front of our building for this exact reason. So I think that's where I sit. Like, generally, I love the building, I love the project. I'd like to see it through that lens, but I'm only one committee member.
Contingent upon what the applicant response is that something that could go back to staff? Okay, it's not something that has to hold us up today. Any thoughts on
So what we're saying is
pedestrian-
that we can't get an approval today?
No, that's not what they're saying.
No.
What they were just talking about is there's been some concerns raised by Eric, and what Tony was clarifying is if they land on a condition, would that be a revision that could go to staff for approval, which means it doesn't have to go back to them? And they were just agreeing with that it would not have to go back to them, it would just come to staff. Now, we haven't landed on any specific wording on conditions yet.
And the comment is some point of connectivity from the building entrance to the right-of-way sidewalk, something. How that's done,
Do you want to clarify to Walnut
well, I think to Walnut is
is really the only
really
place
the
that
only
they
way.
would be
I
able
mean,
to
we-
make something work because they couldn't really do it to the other.
yeah, and
to
that just
Sixth
keeps
Third.
people from, if anybody did want to walk to or from, that they would not have to actually walk in the drive lane, not just through that general area. There's no sidewalk even in that spot.
In one category that I should have said something about, there's going to be a push-button crosswalk added to this location. So that's an important piece of the puzzle that has also been included.
Are you talking a mid-block crossing?
No, not a mid-block, but there was, the idea is to put a push-button crosswalk into this site.
On Walnut?
At one of the intersections, is what
Yes,
you're saying?
yeah, right.
Okay. Well, from when I was out there, there was non-working push buttons, so hopefully that means they're going to be working. So you're talking like up here
Right,
at that light?
right.
Okay.
Okay, so we have some conditions. Do we just need to kind of spell those out?
The variance also includes the landscape islands.
Okay, so can
The
you?
variance also includes
Yes, it
the
does.
landscape islands. I think we need to include something for tree health and, hold on, I'll help you out. I think we should include something for tree health improvement within the soil if we're going to accept a smaller island. I think that needs to be a condition as well.
Okay, so are you wanting that to be?
So the application actually references the structural soil that's being discussed. I think you're talking
Yeah.
about the physical area.
Yeah.
Just a
Okay, so are
clarification.
you wanting that like as a standalone condition that you want to put in here, or are you wanting to add that wording to the condition that talks about them needing? So like,
Well, the wording right now says from the minimum width to minimum size of landscape islands.
correct.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if you wanted to mess
think
with that
we-
wording and add it to
I
that,
think
or
we
you want?
add that there needs to be, the thing is, there's lots of approaches to this. You could do silvicells, you could do structural soil. There are a lot of different products out there that will enhance the root growth underground in confined spaces like this. So I don't know the right wording necessarily to say, I don't want to pick one for you, but a product is used to enhance the life of the tree root system underground.
I think you could say something like, with the condition that appropriate materials and methods to ensure the health of the trees in the tree wells be installed and be submitted to staff as part of the CA.
That sounds great. That sounds
Thank you,
great.
Katie.
Thank you.
And then did you you all discussed the tree species, varieties,
Right.
plant varieties. Is that something that
I
you
think
would
it-
like to ask as a
Yeah.
condition?
I think it should be diversified.
Do you want to include your 10, 20, 30
10, 20, 30 rule.
rule?
That's fine. That's fine with me. I think that would make for a healthier landscape environment.
I would just ask this,
Sure.
as a citizen and someone who has a lawn and trees and all that sort of thing, does this become just a personal preference?
No, this
Is what
is
we're
a-
talking about a personal preference, or is it really something that endangers the support and the success of the project?
It absolutely endangers the landscaping in our city. There's actually a full report written over it. The something roots. Anybody know what I'm talking about? It's written by
putting
Oklahoma
down-
City.
putting down
Roots.
roots,
Thank
yep.
you. And
I didn't catch that.
there's a book called Putting Down Roots. Our city actually wrote this
Okay.
report, and
Good.
it's about tree species and diversity and why it needs to be diverse. The city also paid for Davy Trees to come out and do a full survey, and they wrote a report as well over what trees there's too much of one species in our park system or public spaces, and their recommendation of how to start building in more succession plantings and diverse tree species, so we are better prepared for disease. For our trees. That way, we are not all planting the same trees. The disease comes in and they're all dead. So it's not a personal preference. It is science.
Thank you.
Yes.
And I can get you a copy of that.
Right.
Putting Down Roots, we have it available digitally.
And so I think that could be one more condition, that the landscape plan be updated, the landscape plan be revised to reflect more diverse tree species in keeping with the 10, 20, 30
Yeah.
rule.
That works great.
Okay.
Is there anyone from the gallery that wants to speak on this item? Okay. Are there any more?
Okay.
But yeah, no, thank you guys for your time. Appreciate it. Like I said earlier, we put a lot of careful conversation and consideration into bringing what we feel like is a really Class A project to Oklahoma City to provide and pay tribute to our history and our roots from the city perspective, as well as giving a new, wonderful, kind of iconic building that people can come to and enter into the city and be proud of, something that can be there for a long time. You know, we're personally putting our headquarters there and roots, and we plan on being there for forever. So we're excited about it. We appreciate your time. We appreciate your consideration, thought into this, and looking forward to getting going the project. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so based on what you all just said, I think we're looking at adding conditions E, F, and G. And E is the one with the connectivity from the building to Walnut for people to walk, so pedestrian pathway that is not the drive aisles. F is the wording about using a product for the tree health, be it structural, soil, or whatever that one is. And G is the 10, 20, 30 tree species. Let's see, what did you say? Species, family, and genus. Genus, families, yeah, I'm sorry, whatever order that is in.
Species, genus, family.
Okay, that one, yes.
That's the three that were of interest to me. I want to make sure before I craft a motion that, okay. So
And the last three would come to staff.
Yes.
they would come to staff.
Sorry, and for me, I was saying I would not recommend a variance for the sign height. So I would strike that and say they need to revise the sign to be into the compliance. That's where I sit.
Right. Do you want to craft that motion?
You can actually leave out C. That, I mean, you could make your motion and not include C, if that is what your preference is.
But we're not approving that sign height as a part of the application. So
No,
we'll need
it-
to revise that sign and
Well,
come back
that
to
they're
you.
not, you basically aren't approving that sign, because if you don't include C, that's the size and the height of that sign, they can't do that sign without the variance. So
Okay.
if you don't include it, it's not approved.
And they can come back to you with a sign that is the right height.
Right, I mean, if you want to further clarify, not including that, you could actually reference that approve the project with the exception of 5A, because that is the item on the list of items for consideration that was that sign. And then you just would not read C, the condition C, because that is the condition
Yeah.
for that sign.
And then you could separately continue item 5A, the sign, if we want to give them an opportunity to make some changes or make a, yeah.
The one thing I would say is that is part of their Board of Adjustment application, and that meeting is on, I think, January the 16 minus, it's early, it's like January 6 or something, 7.
Are you opposed to the height of the sign if it's in a different location?
I think I'm generally opposed to the height of the sign because it feels very suburban, and I don't want it to create a precedent for a development west of this development that might say, oh, well, they got a 20-foot sign, I want a 20-foot sign, but they develop it in a very urban scale, and it creates this knock-on effect of highway-sized signs on a pedestrian-experienced urban street. Does that make sense, Tony? So I'm gonna try one.
I can help.
Okay. I'm going to approve the application on the basis that the project complies with the regulations and guidelines of the Downtown Design District zoning ordinance as referenced in section C and D of the staff report, with the condition that the applicant obtain variances from the Board of Adjustment to A, the regulation requiring the building to be located within 10 feet of the property line at the street right-of-way. B, from the minimum width and minimum size of landscape islands. D, from the regulation requiring mechanical equipment to be screened. E, that the applicant provide additional information for staff review to ensure the long-term health and stability of the trees planted in the landscape islands, utilize a system that ensures their long-term health. F, that the applicant add a pedestrian pathway from Walnut through the site to the front door of the building. And G, that the applicant revise the landscape planting plan to reflect the 10, 20, 30 rule that Kayla Copeland identified during the meeting.
And accepting.
And we are excluding the acceptance of sign as identified as 5A in the report.
And,
That was very good.
and it goes back to staff for approval. It doesn't have to come back to us.
Mariana Sarurde, second.
Okay. Motion passes, and then we have a second portion of that.
I would like to make a motion to provide a recommendation of approval to the Board of Adjustment for variances from A, the regulation requiring the building to be located within 10 feet of the property line at the street right-of-way, B, from the minimum width and minimum size of landscape islands, and C, from the regulation requiring mechanical equipment to be screened.
Okay, wait a minute. So you just changed
He
the-
just changed.
You just
C to C.
changed
Yeah,
the,
I just went A, B, C
Order.
instead of doing A, B, D.
Okay, I just, because normally we'd go in and I would just pull
Okay.
it out. Yeah, but no, that's okay. I just wanted to make sure which one you were saying, because I was, okay.
Mariana Sayulo, the second.
Motion passes. Okay. Thank you for your time.
Thank
Appreciate
you very
guys.
much
Thank
to
you.
everyone. We
And do we-
appreciate
Thank you, sir.
lively
Happy
conversation.
Happy holidays.
Do we want
Sorry.
to continue the sign to a?
Oh, and then, yes, we need to continue
Oh.
the signed portion. Sorry. Thank you, Katie.
Okay, so we're looking at a motion to continue 5A, that's what you're saying? Which is the
I believe so,
sign?
yes.
So the sign at Walnut was not included in the approval. So if we can continue that to a future meeting for further consideration of the sign, or if you all want to consider an alternate location, or just, come back and make the case for
It
the.
seems like to me it needs study, that we need to talk about this in order to understand, because it's more than just the two of us making this decision, so. Is that fair?
We need, because, I don't think you see where also competition,
Yeah.
like, actually be number one. And then, two would be, the other companies, and it's in property, do you need, someone to drive by, and, oh, that's what that is. So when they do need to hear the building, they have the ability to just, because it is kind of.
So we could continue it to a date certain, or they could just come back to me and say, okay, now we're ready, can you get me on the agenda? And we could just, we'd re-advertise and do whatever, but it's whatever people
you
want.
Can they take no action on the sign, or do they need to either continue it or?
You could do either one.
Okay.
So if they don't do anything by excluding it, they've literally not approved 5A. But they could come back in and say, here's our new 5A, here's the new location, here's the new size, we would like to go back to the commission, and would get them scheduled. So that's another option.
Yeah.
So they don't really have to do anything because they've excluded it.
We should ask the applicant, do you want the sign issue to be continued to a date certain?
To be continued means that we have more time to find a solution before we come back to the group, right?
How much time do you think you need to meet with your client about the sign and staff?
Oh, a year? It's just, that's how challenging this project has been. So, can we have a couple of weeks?
Okay.
Plus, we've got.
The problem we've got is if we continue it till January, I need all the stuff next week. We're in the middle of the holidays, and that just,
How about February?
so if we continue it to February, the February meeting is February 20th. And so I don't need your stuff until January 20th.
Okay.
And if by chance you still, the holidays are coming up for you all too, if you don't have what you need by that date, you can just let us know, and we can just kind of keep
Great.
moving it down until you're ready.
Thank you for
So,
that consideration.
yeah.
Okay, so what we're looking for is a motion to continue item 5A on the signage to the February 20th meeting.
Correct.
Make a motion to continue item 5A onto the February 20th Downtown Design Committee agenda.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you. Okay.
I have to recuse myself for the next
Okay.
two.
Yes, and then Tony is excused for the.
Are we done?
We're
done.
Yes, yes.
okay.
Sorry. Thank
You
you.
may be excused, Rand.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
very much. Thanks very much for your time
Thank
and
you.
consideration.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
I don't, how do I get out of this? Oh, no, you're good. You're good.
Next, we have DTCA-24-00080 at 615 Northwest 8th Street.
Hello. This is first of two items for St. Anthony Hospital. This particular one deals with a new site for their bulk oxygen enclosure, and I'm just going to run you through the pictures and then talk about things. So the next case that we're coming to is the block to the north, okay? So we're down here on 8th between Dewey and Lee. And currently, there's a parking garage on one side and a parking lot on the other, and this is the site where they want to put this. And I'm to the east at the intersection looking back. And then the site is there on the left. As I said, on the corner, there is a parking garage, and it's right next to the parking garage. Across the street are two homes that have been converted into offices. Those are located in Cottage. So just to let you know that. And then to the west of it is a parking lot. They are doing some modifications on this corner for this work. Whoa. And then they gave me a presentation, which I think is shorter than the last one we saw. And so this site also needs variances, also needs approval from the Traffic and Transportation Commission, because I did not know in our code, I did know that in the downtown design district, you don't have to provide loading and unloading spaces. But if you do provide them, and they're going to be in the right-of-way like this one, they have to get approval from the Traffic and Transportation Commission. So I know that they're currently working on trying to get that, as well as there is an issue about how wide, basically it's a curb cut. If you look at the plans, you can see it's 100-foot wide. They made it wide enough so that the semi that's coming in to fill up the tank does not have to maneuver in the right-of-way, because we don't like that at all, and they would need a variance for that too. So they made it wide enough that the semi could just pull in and then just pull out when they're through. So the current bulk oxygen site, I'm not showing it on mine, but they do have it in their presentation, because it is basically, as the crow flies, if I head toward 10th Street across this block here, it is actually over on the side of this, and you probably drive by it and don't even realize it's there, because it is not adequately screened. But they unfortunately have to deal with a requirement on material for air flow, which has resulted in, as you can see from what they provided you, you can see the tanks through the perforated metal. We kept saying, well, can you do this? Can you do that? And they really couldn't, because I was hoping they could like go up a little higher with something solid and then have the perforated metal higher. They have given us the west facade of the building is going to be solid, so it will be screened as you drive east. But if you are across the street or walking down the sidewalk and looking directly north at the proposed facility, it will be the perforated metal and you'll be able to see. Now, driving to the west, the parking garage that's there will help with some of that screening, but they don't meet the requirement which says that it has to be screened from view. And I went ahead and included the section about not using public right-of-way just to let you know that's why they're showing a 100-foot space there in front of it. Staff was concerned about the pedestrian pathway. They are showing it with striping, and they're showing the truck being parked and leaving the pedestrian pathway open. But that's not to say the truck doesn't pull in and doesn't get over as far as he needs to. So that still is a concern. I don't know what time of the day, if it's like the middle of the night thing that a lot of people do, and then there won't be that many pedestrians out. But if it's in the middle of the day, it's possible that there's a lot of people out there. The other issue that came up is the fact that for side and rear yard fences, which The screening is actually a fence, because this is a structure, but it's not totally enclosed, so the screening aspect of it is fence, and I have a maximum height of 8 feet. And they really exceed that. I think it's 32 feet. So that is also included in here for what they need variances from. So they have to have 50% openness in their cladding material. And I know that the original location that they were looking at was a lot more visible because it was over on the east side of the hospital, I think up by the traffic circle. Is it on the west side? Oh, that one, that's right. Right, up by the traffic circle where the current one is. It really is kind of more out of the way here. It's unfortunate that they can't hide it in the middle, but they can't really because you have to get to it with a semi, and it's kind of hard to tuck something in somewhere and then have a semi get to it. So I think they looked at all options and landed on this one. I have not received any calls. We send notices out to property owners within 150 feet. And so that would have included the property owners across the street, which would be the only ones that I think could potentially be concerned about it. But I haven't heard from anybody. So staff is concerned about the view, but taking in the location, design, material, everything into consideration, moving the bulk oxygen equipment to the proposed location could result in a better result as compared to the current location. And for this reason, we are supporting what they're proposing. And so we have the recommendation of approval subject to conditions, and they need variance from the Board of Adjustment on the mechanical equipment screening and from the maximum height of a side and rear yard fence. They need to obtain the required approval from the Traffic and Transportation Commission for the loading space, and they have to obtain the required approval from the Public Works Director for the 100-foot wide curb cut. And then there's the companion one for the A, which is the Board of Adjustment condition. Do you have any questions of staff?
Any questions for staff?
Okay. The applicant is here, and he is this one. Oops, that didn't go to the right one. Let me, no, hang on. I'm getting out of it, I promise, okay. I should have just stayed in there because there is yours, yes.
Perfect.
And when you sign in, you just need to put your name. We know which one you want, so it's okay.
That's all right. Thank you, Laura. You want to drive or you want me to drive?
Do you want to drive?
I can.
Okay.
That way I can point at things, I suppose. Okay, great. Thank you. All right, thank you, everyone. My name is Cody Pistolka. I'm with Miller Architecture and Development here in Oklahoma City on behalf of SSM Health St. Anthony. I think Laura set this up really well. I wanted to go into a little, just quick detail as to why we're not locating this at the current location, which was what our original plan was. So along Chartel and 10th Street by the roundabout, this is the current equipment location. And then in relation to the main hospital tower, it's right here outlined in orange. Our new proposed location, as she noted, is down here on 8th between Lee and Dewey Avenues. The current equipment, as you can see, those are the vaporizers. They are icing up. A lot of that has to do with capacity and airflow issues. So not only is it unsightly, obviously when these were put in, we didn't have the same screening requirements that we have downtown. But our first thought was, well, all the valves, the lines, everything are right here, so let's put it back. As we started looking into NFPA 55, which deals with cryogenic gases, and looking at the uses around here to the south is the behavioral health gymnasium and also a playground. Talking to the fire marshal, that's considered an assembly use. NFPA 55 requires a 50-foot buffer between those uses. So as we looked at that, that would require a custom layout. A typical newer oxygen layout's a square pad, which you'll see on our new design. That would have required the equipment to be in a linear fashion along this street, which would eliminate most, if not all, of these trees, and then create a giant screen wall up and down the street, and also pushing this offload zone very close to the roundabout, which we had concerns with traffic. So as we went through this process, we really tried to make this site work and decided for multiple reasons it really wasn't feasible. Laura already did a good job of showing the existing conditions, so I won't really belabor that. Quick demolition plan showing what we're going to do. There's already an old curb cut right here, and so basically taking out the sidewalk along that 100-foot offload zone that we'll need, and then doing our best to salvage these 2 mature trees on each side. You can see the parking garage at the corner and the existing POB parking lot kind of to the northwest. The new site plan, I'll show the next slide, kind of how a semi ideally fits in here. But we're proposing ADA curb ramps and striping across this entire distance so that, you know, whether there's a truck there or not, pedestrians can still safely get past. The pad itself right here is about 34 feet by 34 feet. The opaque portion, which is limestone, is on this corner, and then the 50% open metal panels are on all other sides. Again, as Laura noted that way, the opaque side, as you're traveling eastbound, you're shielding the equipment much more from view and then utilizing the parking garage to help shade the view of the equipment as you're traveling westbound. And this is just kind of, again, a quick study of how a semi would fit in relation. It's a 65-foot tanker is what they use. They basically slide the gate open and refill from this point. Right now, Barry Haynes from SSM's here. He can tell you more if you have questions about the deliveries, but I believe they're during the day right now, but they kind of vary based on Airgas's delivery schedule, correct?
It's typically at night.
At night, typically, yeah.
It's unless there's a electronic call for a refill.
Sorry, do you mind coming to the mic and speaking? Just saying that, sorry.
And identify yourself,
I
thanks.
apologize. Barry Haynes, I'm with SSM Health.
Yep.
The typical delivery is off hours. It's between midnight and 3 a.m. unless there is an emergency call for delivery of oxygen due to a need in our pavilion or ICUs or surgeries, et cetera. You know, if the service of oxygen to the main hospital is in such demand that it requires more than a regularly scheduled refill, then that's automated. It's an automatic call to Airgas,
Sure.
and they deliver accordingly.
In a timely fashion.
That's correct.
And you'll have more capacity now, so I'd imagine that become more rare event.
That's correct. We've added on to the facility multiple times without expanding the size of the bulk oxygen tanks, and now we're in a situation where the vaporizer can't handle the demand for the amount of oxygen that the hospital is using.
Yep. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a few quick elevations. This south elevation right here shows from the street view, so there's the opaque portion, which is the limestone. The next project we'll present, we'll get into that a little bit more, but as the campus has evolved over time, we kind of looked back to more of the historic detailing, which involved a lot of cast stone, and even some of the historic buildings, some actual hand-carved stone. So we're trying to bring the campus back a little of that aesthetic. There's a sliding gate, which will be a solid metal panel, and then on the right side are the 50% open architectural. It's a Morin MX1. It's a very nice panel. I think Eric probably knows that one. Again, it would be 50% perforated on all sides, but this portion would be opaque so that you're not seeing directly into the tanks. But that just simply slides to the side during loading and unloading, and that's the rest. So here's just a quick material board. That's the profile of the panel itself, the 50% open right here. Just an installed example of, and I don't know what percentage open that is. That's just off of Morin's website. But and then the cottonwood limestone and a blasted finish, which is, again, what we're going to be proposing on the next project we present here in a few minutes. So a 3D conceptual view of how this would look looking northbound. So we're on 8th Street looking directly to the north, the parking garage to the right, the existing trees kind of on all sides, and there's that parking lot with that little flume where the water discharges. So you can kind of see the curb cut and the striping between the sidewalk. And now we have a semi. Yay.
Man, that flew in there fast.
What's that?
That flew in there fast.
Yeah, they're in, they're out, no problem. And it should have been at night. Sorry, Barry. I should have. I'll learn. We do, I don't like bright yellow bollards, but that is a requirement for safety because these are explosive gases. So this is surrounded by bollards with 3-foot deep footings all the way around, just for an extra layer of protection. See, this guy's crossing, he's happy, we're good, so. This is, from a pedestrian's point of view, looking to the northeast, heading eastbound, so it kind of gives you an idea of what it would look like. So the goal is to make it look architectural and not just feel like an equipment screen or a dumpster enclosure, but to feel like something that blends into the campus, but also doesn't draw a lot of attention to itself. And these panels will be, we've got a color on the next project to be presented, the west entrance, that's kind of compatible with the limestone, so it's like a champagne pearl colored metal panel. And then again, kind of looking from across to the northwest from the parking garage. So that is it on our rendering. So.
Any questions for the applicant?
Oh, sorry, I'd like to note one thing. So we do have the Board of Adjustment hearing next month. That's already scheduled. Laura, I don't know if you saw, so Jill Walsh from Traffic told us via email that no petitions required for the offloading zone. I can forward that to you.
Well, and that's fine, because I'll just forward it to legal, because we have a
Okay.
code requirement that says, so you're saying,
Yeah, I
oh, you're
sent them
talking about
ask-
the 100-foot wide curb cut? Is that what the last one's about?
Yes.
No, you're talking about the requirement for Traffic and Transportation Commission that the code calls for.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Okay.
sent them an application, said, can you get me on your schedule to present? And their response was no petitions
Forward
required.
it to me, and I'll send it to legal.
So,
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, I have two questions.
yeah.
One for what this is, I like it. You said you are going to try to salvage the trees.
Yeah.
I want to talk about that.
Yeah, we're within the drip line. I understand that.
Great. Okay. So, what are y'all doing when you do cut into the soil? Are y'all doing anything special?
To the soil, I mean, we don't have anything in our plans yet,
Okay.
but it's something we can definitely add, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we tried to find different arrangements. It's just with the truck size and staying out of the street. If that tree were another 10 feet north, it would be a lot easier. And the one to the east, I know that
Yeah,
it's
most
tight.
of that, what is that, the north one, the larger one?
Yeah.
Like, ooh, about 30% is being
Yep.
cut into, so.
Yeah.
I would just watch it and see if you need treatment, determine like, I don't know. I almost would recommend arborists to go out there and just see it right when you cut it to see if the roots need a treatment,
Okay.
just to see if that could help salvage it, because it is a beautiful tree.
It is, yeah. All the trees on that side of campus are really
yeah,
nice.
they're great.
Yeah, it's
They're very big.
a sycamore, yeah.
Well, is that a
Yeah.
river birch? I don't know, anything
It's
with a
sycamore.
white trunk is a river birch
I think it's
to me,
sycamore,
so-
isn't it? It's got all the little,
You're good.
yeah.
And then, is there any concern with someone climbing up this?
Of someone climbing up it?
Yeah.
The perforations
I
are
thought
only
it's
a
2 by 2.
1.5 inch.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah,
it's
you-
one. Oh,
they're
the
only- they're-
detail said 2 by 2, I think.
Is it 2 by, I'm sorry, it might be 2 by 2.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe a professional rock climber.
That's what I was
but,
wondering.
Yeah.
Hopefully they don't find this. And then lighting too. Will there be any lighting?
There's
on this
only
one?
interior lighting, and it's on the northeast corner and southwest corner, and that's just for maintenance at night. But from the outside, we really don't want to draw attention to it.
Figured. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, I think this is like a fantastic example of like a screen for oxygen tank can still be architecture and can be treated seriously for delivery process, maintaining the pedestrian right of way, actually improving the sidewalk there because that bump up over that
Yeah.
drainage culvert is strange. So thank you for the care and attention for being a nice neighbor. The Morin MX1 panel in a painted finish when perforated, the back face is that really horrific white pre-finish.
We're planning on having, at least in our base bid, having it as a pre-finished on the backside. We don't have the pricing back on that yet
Yeah.
to see what that does to our budget, but my preference is it would be finished on both sides because
You're gonna
most
see
metal
through it, you're
panels
gonna see
on
the
the
back face
backside,
of the
yeah, it's a
back one.
different color, and
Yeah.
then, yeah.
So that's the one thing I have learned using this panel is the
Yeah.
backside is that horrific white color.
I've done it for multi-story buildings, and you go on the second floor and you look back and it's white, and yeah.
But also I think bravo for using the MX1 panel because even though you'll get the 50%, you also have a lot more meat of metal, so it will screen more than 50%.
Yeah.
So it's well detailed, and I appreciate the sentiment. And I've been looking at that vaporizer freezing for the last 10 years going,
Barry's been
"Wonder
out there with
what's
a
going
blow
on there."
dryer. It's been rough, but
I think it's great. Okay.
Appreciate
Any
the
other
comments. Thank you.
questions or comment? If not, is there anyone else in the gallery that wants to speak on this item? Okay, perfect. Anyone?
Go for it.
I'll make a motion to approve the application on the basis that the project complies with the regulations and guidelines of the Downtown Design District zoning ordinance as referenced in section C and D of the staff report with the conditions that A, the applicant obtain variances from the Board of Adjustment from the regulation requiring mechanical equipment to be screened and from the maximum height of a side and rear yard fence. B, the applicant obtains the required approval from the Traffic and Transportation Commission for the loading space. And C, the applicant obtains the required approval from the Public Works Director for the 100-foot wide curb cut.
Saror, the second.
I will comment that even though they've indicated that they've been told they don't have to go to Traffic and Transportation Commission, I'd like that to still stay in there until legal weighs in on this, because that's what the code says.
Yep,
Okay.
sounds great. Okay, motion passes.
Thank you guys. See you in a few minutes again.
Then I'd like to make a motion to provide a recommendation of approval to the Board of Adjustment for variances from the regulation requiring mechanical equipment to be screened and from the maximum height of the side and rear yard fence.
Saror, the second.
Okay, motion passes. Okay. Next, we have DTCA-24-00081 at 1000 and 1001 North Lee Avenue. Laura?
Okay, let me just. Our second St. Anthony case involves the fact that Lee, between 10th and 9th, was closed and vacated a while ago. It has still functioned as a street. It still looks like a street. But what I included in here was February 2007 was when district court approved the vacation with a couple of easements in there. So this project involves basically retaining what I'll call the north half of that street, putting in a turnaround so people can still pull in, but then they're going to have an addition that connects the hospital building over to the parking garage, and then south of there will just be landscaping lawn. It will not be a drive anymore. And so there's a long list of items that stuff they're doing and the different materials that they're using. Believe it or not, they don't need any variances. So we actually have something here today that doesn't need a variance. And as you saw in the staff report, I probably could have just put this on consent because I had no issues that came up in reviewing it. And so, I'll just scroll through these really fast. That's just an aerial of the overall site. And so this is looking south down Lee from 10th Street. So this is where they will still have a way for vehicles to get in, and they'll have a turnaround down there, and they'd come back up. And then this is standing down on 9th Street, looking north up Lee. There will not be vehicular traffic in this location when they get finished with this. And that's the parking garage on the left that they're going to be connecting the building to. And then this is looking north, and that's the Pasture Medical Building on the left. So this will not be impacted by what they're doing. That is all south of here. And then this is standing at the southern end of the project, looking south down Lee at the development that's there. And then that is a different project. You sent me one. It's not here. Okay, close your eyes. No, I'm joking. Let me get back. I'm trying to find out where yours went to. Yeah, we were. That's it. Okay. It just wasn't, that's why it just wasn't in order. Okay. Would you like to, and then how do I make this the whole thing? There's something that I X out of. Do I X out of this thing? Okay.
Okay, any questions for Laura? Okay.
I'm just very glad that I could say no variances are needed.
Yeah, I expected more on this one. Do I need to introduce myself again, or
Pardon?
should I reintroduce myself?
Go for it.
Go,
Sure.
please.
Cody Pistolka, Miller
We forgot
Architecture and
who you were.
Development,
Yeah.
on behalf of SSM Health St. Anthony. Again, thank you, Laura. I know this one's a little bit, another unusual project, so it is a little surprising that there's no variances. We actually found the original letter for the street vacation by some of the nuns made in the 1970s on old St. Anthony letterhead, typewritten. I should have put it in the presentation just for fun. It's pretty neat. But just for context, real quick, the existing parking garage and physical plant are located on the west side of Lee. The main hospital tower is right here, so most of the vantage points that Laura was pointing out were either from the north at 10th Street or the 9th Street looking north from the south. And then further context, here's our proposed bulk oxygen equipment. Let's see. Just a real quick schematic of the changes in relation to the existing conditions. The entrance is planned to connect the garage to the main hospital tower. If you go through there right now, you have to go through the street. There's grade changes. It's not easily accessible, and our goal is to provide a no barrier access entry to the main hospital, which will connect this west parking garage to the existing entrance. Also to create a covered drop-off on the north, along with pedestrian access, and then pedestrian access from the south through what we're calling the Great Lawn, which is highlighted in green. Just aesthetically, a little background. We looked at the Basilica of St. Anthony in Padua, Italy, at some of the arches that were present there, and as you look around campus, some of the historic buildings that still remain contain a number of arches that we were inspired by. Here's two examples. This on the left is actually a beautiful masonry wall with an arch that's going to be part of the Grand Lawn as you approach the south side of the connector of the west entrance. And then on the building to the south, another beautiful arch out of cast stone. And just a few sketches as looking at historic arches versus what could be a modern interpretation of that applied to this new structure. A simplified architectural site plan, and as we get further into the plan, I've got Brent Wall from Laud Studio, our landscape architect. So we've got a plant palette that we can discuss, and he can answer some of the specifics on the site itself. Again, the grading and everything is very challenging, and given the size of this site. So to the north off Lee Avenue, this existing circle drive remains, but our new drop-off will be a circle drive along with the garage entry, so there will be valet parking. That dashed line is a large entry canopy for cars that are dropping patients off and on. Parking garage to this side, the hospital tower over here. The entry itself spans here with a new stair to the south, serving the garage. And then to the right, this is actually part of the current entry. There's a fountain with skylight that's actually internal, and we're actually going to make that part of the exterior, connecting to this walkway from the south. Here's 9th Street right here. Sorry, I don't have it.
And
all
while
quite
you're
in
there,
view.
because I forgot to mention it, can you point to the entrance to the garage because you're doing that entry portal?
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, on
Yeah,
the
I
southwest
forgot to
corner.
mention
Yeah,
it.
this
That's
was a
listed.
separate administrative application. For
Yeah.
the actual entrance, we're taking a few panels off and providing an access point down here. We do have some architectural elements as part of this application, but the signage will be handled via separate application. But you can see where the existing curb cut, the existing street access is now just this Grand Lawn. As I know, the physical plants here, there are transformer vaults. So we are keeping this service courtyard right here so that if and when the transformers need to be serviced or removed, there's still access for OG&E. The floor plan, it's basically almost like an atrium type space. So here's the garage, new elevators, the new stair, the main entry canopy, and then a canopy on the back with entries on each side, and then a security checkpoint before you get into the hospital, which connects over on this side. And this is the outdoor courtyard that I mentioned that is currently inside the building. Second floor is basically an overlook that connects to the upper level, one of the upper levels of the garage, the first level above grade. That will create kind of an overlook into the space. This is the south elevation, so this is kind of where the modern interpretation of the arch started to take effect. So these are the architectural metal panels that surround a limestone veneer. Here's the drop-off canopy, and then our elevator tower to the right. The glass itself, we're trying to make this very airy and open so that it feels like you're outside, like you're almost in a garden as you're going from the garage into the stair tower. So the whole idea was to make this feel more like hospitality than a hospital, so that, you know, we know that sunlight and plants and all that helps in the healing process psychologically, physiologically. So it's important that, you know, this is the first impression of the hospital. The glass itself, and we've got a materials page, but it's a Novum wall, so 32-foot tall panels that are supported by a steel support on the interior. On the back side, we have a little bit shorter ones, but there's actually no hardware. It's just free-floating glass, so it's been really fun to work with Novum structures on that. You don't get to use those every day. And I would like to also point out just the, before I forget, the commitment that SSM made many decades ago to Midtown. I mean, had they not stayed in Midtown, I don't think the core of our city would be what it is today. So it's exciting to see their continued investment in their campus and the city. This is on the south elevation, so this is the stair tower for the garage. And then this is the smaller Novum wall back on this side. So the scale comes down a little bit on the pedestrian side. There's no drop off, so it's kind of a reinterpretation of the arch that you see on the other elevation. And then as you come across, it was a tricky project connecting all these different levels, the hospital and everything. So we're trying to make it as seamless as possible. And you'll see a few renderings in a minute that we'll quickly go through. And that's the southwest corner of the existing garage, just marking a new entry so that people have an idea that that's an entrance and exit in and out. There's an existing generator enclosure directly to the side. So again, the actual curb cut and everything was a separate application that was done administratively, and then the signage portal is part of this
And that
application.
administrative approval, it used to have angled parking across the front of that parking garage, and they removed that so they could add this an entrance into it, and some landscaping was put in, and I did that administratively. So all they're doing with this is they're putting the portal, which they'll come back in and end up adding signage to it, so.
So again, the exterior materials, we do have some two-sided and four-sided SSG. I guess the four-sided wasn't noted on there, at the locations where we do not have the Novum glass wall. The Cottonwood limestone blasted finish, so the same limestone we're proposing for the oxygen enclosure. Some of the soffits are synthetic wood, like at the main entry. There's a good deal of wood on the interior that you'll see in a minute, but the main entry canopy has a wood finish to it as well. Exterior pavers that Brent can talk a lot more about, and then the ACM panels that the monitor's not showing that. It's a champagne pearl, so it has a bit of warmth to it to relate to the limestone. And this is a rendering giving you an idea of the 32-foot tall glass panels at the south side.
Well, that's the same height as the walls on
Isn't that funny?
the oxygen
Yeah.
enclosure.
Yeah, that was not on purpose, but it's meant to be. Again, Brent did I think, a fantastic job on the landscape. So this is our landscape palette. Again, if anyone has any specific questions, I'll invite Brent up here to answer it. But I think it's going to really feel pretty amazing as you arrive from either side of the hospital. Onto just renderings. I'll go through these quickly. If anyone has questions as we go through them, you can stop me. But this is the circle drive with the large landscape island in the middle. So we're coming south down Lee Avenue looking at the north elevation. So that's that first hardline elevation you saw with the portal and the glass. There's the elevator tower. The existing garage will have architectural metal panel, kind of a frame around it, just to kind of clean it up a little bit. It was built, I think, late 60s, I believe. And then kind of the approach as you come around the circle drive. And again, this is barrier-free, so no curbs at the drop-off, so that's easier for patients to get in and out, especially those in wheelchairs or crutches. And just the night view, I think it'll have some really great lighting, uplighting the cast stone, or the limestone, sorry. And then this arched portal frame will have a recessed light that'll wash down on the limestone as well. Up a little closer, you can see the automatic doors. Kind of fun element is the main part of this, the backspan of this canopy is supported off of this element. There's actually some cables that you can't really see here that support it. But then to lighten it up, we did an open truss column on each end that we'll have with vines growing up it. As you walk in, this is the view back out in the evening to the Great Lawn. So there's the frameless glass. There's the kind of mezzanine type level up above. As you look back toward the north, toward the drop-off, again, it's, Again, the intent is that you feel like you're outside. As you come out of the garage, this is your view, looking to the east toward the hospital, so a large skylight. Sure.
Are those cables you were talking about?
Yeah, right there.
Okay.
Yep. So a large skylight to see the tower of the existing hospital. We kind of stepped it down to make the transition to a much smaller ceiling height. But again, to the left and to the right and above, you feel like you're outdoors. And then this is looking back toward the garage. This is a petrified moss wall so that we don't have to worry about Legionnaire's disease or anything with those type of plants. And then this is the outdoor area, which is currently inside the hospital, where we're removing the walls, recladding the columns, and the soffit. And then the south side of the entry. So again, this is basically what is currently Lee Avenue and now the Grand Lawn. So the pedestrian access point, this is the historic wall with the beautiful arch that I showed at the beginning. And Brent's also added a lot of outdoor seating and benches throughout the project. And then again at night, similar with the lit portal frame. And then a view looking toward the new stair and the existing garage that'll be reclad. And that is everything we have for renderings. So any questions or anything for Brent or me or Barry, please let us know.
Questions for the applicant? You start us off, Caleb.
I think it's beautiful.
Thank you.
I love it. I love the accent lights all the way from the building to each tree. It's stunning. Good job. And I can't wait to see this live in Oklahoma City. I actually really don't have a ton of questions. I was going to ask about the tree removals in the demo plan, but I don't want to anymore.
Well, and
seeing it-
we're only removing for the most part where the building's going.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's a lot of.
We
great
had a
trees.
discussion early on about the south corner, and I totally came off of you can't do that to, oh, okay, I'm looking at what the tree looks like and the health of the tree, and I understand why you're doing what you're doing. But
So I'm happy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
In essence, it's a hallway,
Yeah, it is the corridor, yeah.
and it's the coolest hallway.
Thank you.
And I think it's a testament to a dedicated owner and operator that's a key partner in our community.
You can't do this without a client willing to.
Hiring a
yeah.
very talented architecture team and a very talented landscape architecture team who created a hallway, but it is a meaningful piece of cityscape for pedestrians in Oklahoma City. And so thank you for caring about street trees, connectivity, and very well done design.
Thank you very much. And also Olson, our engineering team's done a fantastic job. Again, it's a big site, so appreciate the kind comments.
Perfect. Is there anyone from the gallery that wants to speak on this item? Okay.
There's a lot of plant diversity.
I love
Br-
it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good job, Brent.
yeah. Am I entertaining a motion?
Yes, you are.
Oh, perfect.
Okay. I motion that we approve the application on the basis that the project complies with the regulation and guidelines of the Downtown Design District zoning ordinance as referenced in section C of the staff report.
Mariana Serur, the second.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
thank
you all
you.
very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, so we'll get
Tony's back.
Tony
coming
back in.
Yes.
I'm pulling them up as soon as the screen changes. Okay, let me close that. I need to do that, and then I need to go to this, and then I'm like here.
Okay, other business. Item number 7, other business, we have none. Item number 8, communications, we have a presentation by Johnson Associates.
I think we're still morning, so good morning.
Good morning.
Mark Sitzau, Johnson & Associates, 1 East Sheridan Avenue. Before you is I think a fairly exciting project, we hope. We're very early in this process. We had a meeting with the city staff maybe a month ago, and I think there were some points they brought up that we've tried to address for the purpose of this presentation, but there were also concerns that they raised regarding the use of shipping containers in Bricktown based on some of the codes. And so before we take this any further with the designers and the architects, we wanted to get it in front of this group to get feedback because if it's a project that the board doesn't feel should happen, we'd like to know now before the client proceeds with a lot of design. And so if you're unfamiliar, this is the former Mantle Wine Bistro. If you've been to our office in Bricktown, we're just a couple blocks to the west. This is a prominent site in Bricktown. We're aware of that. It's pretty much the first thing you see when you come down Walnut Bridge, as people come speeding down Walnut Bridge. And it's not the most attractive in terms of high lines and power lines. And so it's a little bit of a difficult site. When the Mantle moved out, the owner spent a considerable amount of time and effort trying to find a new restaurant to come in and take over the space. A barbecue restaurant did open up. Unfortunately, it was not long-standing. It closed shortly after the opening. And since then, they've struggled to find anybody to take over a building this size. And so where we're at is trying to find an interim use. The developer has long-term plans to redevelop this site, but with the Olympics coming and some other events that are coming online, they're wanting to do something to activate the corner, and ultimately, what's maybe the most exciting part, is remove the surface parking from the hard corner of one of the more prominent intersections in Bricktown. So what's being proposed at this point is kind of a lawn garden, beer garden style development and using shipping containers to kind of hold down that hard corner. We're not at the point where we're ready for a permanent building to come in, but we did want to do something at that corner to help define it, and then removal of the parking in place with artificial turf, and then a stage for weekend concerts, events. And so if I now have it, so I'll do it. So these are just kind of these conceptual renderings of what we're trying to do. Our firm, along with the Thunder and some other designers, worked on the shipping container project that was placed at Scissortail Park last year. If you saw that, it was a lot of the B-roll footage for the team. There's a lot of excitement and interest just around how they can be placed and what they can do. And so one of the things that we've done is flip one of the containers vertically, which will allow for some form of signage. I would not get overly hung up on what you're seeing in these renderings, but the goal would be that's where signage or a screen can be placed. One of the feedback items we heard from staff was, how do we more engage with the street side of the containers? So what's been done are more punch outs and windows that'll allow some transparency back into the site on this corner. We are proposing putting up a matching wrought iron style fence with brick columns that exist on the parking lot across the street, and then a series of planters with lower level plantings along the street frontages. And you can see these are those the Highline poles. If you've been out there, there are a couple street trees, but over the years they continue to get chopped down, what we believe to be by utility contractors, because they are placed directly underneath the overhead lines. The question was for those watching at home, if it's an EMD sign left of the stage. I think that's here.
Yes.
This is like the backdrop. It's not.
Okay, so it's not okay, I just was curious. And just as a reminder, you all now see Bricktown. As you know, we haven't seen that many things because with the consolidation, Bricktown Committee went away, and so that now goes to you. So I should have started with that before he started his presentation.
So Bricktown, I believe under the new sign code, is the only design district or area that allows EMD. And so what we are looking...
EMD 3s, so downtown can do EMD 1 and 2.
So we're looking at EMD on the tower portion, on portions of it, but that'll be designed in conformance with the sign code. So there's another picture of that, again, popping windows. We don't have an exact use of these at this time, but the idea would be the potential of a pickup window. They're serving hot dogs late at night, something like that. Another view, we're dealing with a couple issues in terms of this beer garden style concept. An ABLE commission, that when you're serving that and your whole area is the space for consumption, we do have to corral folks and they do have to be kept in. So we've put in gates on both street frontages, but that is why you see this kind of more transparent, higher fence along the property. The black awning that currently really hides the majority of the building on the south side of the existing building will be taken down with that temporary shipping container placed up against that wall. We're looking at a sliding gate here so we can close it off at night so there's no additional access. Can you see my mouse when I move it? Perfect. This is on the alley side as you're coming down. We're looking at putting in additional parking spaces on the back side of the alley as someone runs toward it. View from across the street. And then this is the inside. There'll be various picnic tables, bar level seating up to the shipping containers. Some form of a stage will be placed. The renovations that will occur to the building itself would be two transparent garage doors where there are kind of two banks of windows right now, and then a double door entry on this side. This building's not on the historic registry. Note that as you're thinking through your comments. And these are just more angles. So with that, I'll happily flip back to any of them that you want to see. But really at this point, we're not voting on anything. We're asking for feedback, given that it's shipping containers and Bricktown has language in the code that allows accent metal. It doesn't allow metal buildings. I'll note there's a shipping container on what, it's sometimes hard to keep up with the bar and club names. The Pink Parrot.
OKC as like the original kind of structure, right? OKC.
So that's in Deep Deuce.
Oh, so not that one.
There was a bar, this was probably like 10 years ago, the Pink Parrot. It's immediately across the street. They have a shipping container on their roof. And then Sasquatch, Shaved Ice is down on Reno. So it's not there anymore? It's gone? Okay, it was there. It was there momentarily. But so there has been precedent that shipping containers be placed in Bricktown. But with that, happy to answer any questions and take any feedback you all have.
So just before you all start, I just wanted to, say that this is an informational presentation. Staff has had a meeting with the applicant to kind of discuss their concept, but we have not reviewed this in detail against the standards and regulations and guidelines. Bricktown has different and in some cases much more specific guidelines than downtown about materials specifically and color palettes and that sort of thing, because it is trying to, preserve the Bricktown feel and look. So those are probably topics that would come up as part of staff review when this did come in for a certificate of approval. And then the other thing I want to note is you all can say today you love everything about this and then you can deny it. So, we don't want you all to appear to be promising an approval at this point, but also don't feel like you have to be bound by the comments you make today when this comes back before you and you have more information and more detail and analysis against the regulations.
Sure. Do you have, and this is for staff, is obviously with the statement of this could come back and be denied, do you have any kind of rule regulation that we could remotely go on as we're looking at this to provide feedback?
Mark mentioned there's language that kind of limits metals to an accent material, and the guidelines for Bricktown do really give strong preference to using brick as the primary building material. I think the other thing is that, while this building may not be on the National Register, it is a historic brick. It is a brick building of the era of Bricktown.
Sure.
So one of staff's concerns is, are we hiding this building? And are we installing features and elements that are not in keeping with not only the character of Bricktown, but also the particular building at the site?
Sure. So,
and that's just gut reaction off the top of my head.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Because the building isn't going away.
Correct.
Correct, okay. So, and if this is meant as a temporary use on a highly trafficked corner with parking lot on the west side of it, and for all intents and purposes on this, what looks like to be on the south side too? Oh no, that's just the
There's a parking lot to the west
parking lot
at
to-
the corner.
Yeah,
And then
To the
some
south.
smaller buildings to the south surrounded by surface parking. So yes, I think staff, our initial reaction was definitely that taking out the surface parking lot, activating the corner was a good thing.
But just
It was
the metal
how do
shielding.
we do this the right way? What's
Sure.
the appropriate design
Okay.
approach?
And I'll note a couple of things. I think the conversation that we did have came up about, are we hiding the building? The reality was if there was building adjacent, was never torn down, with the setback of this building, it would have been fairly hidden. And if something gets redeveloped with an additional building, what we'd expect is it be built out to the property lines.
corner.
And so at some point, the only piece of that one building you'll see will be the south end of it.
okay.
So speaking of non-compliant type structures, and you're not planning on this being a permanent solution, would you be willing, I think that staff has precedent where you set up a time frame and says, this is good for so long?
We
And
can't,
then-
I don't believe that, we've had discussion about
Has there ever been-
temporary approval for things.
I thought that
And
there
I
had
don't
been-
know if we have the ability, given our ordinance, to do that.
I don't think under our current ordinance.
So I know we've done it on parking lots downtown.
Well, the
and-
Board of Adjustment has the ability to do that, and they have issued temporary variances with timeframes for some parking lots.
So that could be
We grant a
a signage for
Yes.
Prairie Surf.
That's what I'm thinking.
And that came up in conjunction with their lease because the city owned it. So I think that might have been why that one was different.
But if the
But
applicant
they had to get a
offered-
variance, and that was tied in with their
If the
variance.
applicant offered as a part of what they were proposing, some sort of memorandum of understanding that after the Olympics were over, that this would cease to be this type of X, and they offered it in, the city wasn't going to take exception to receiving it.
I can talk to our client about that, and between now and the time we submit, we can talk with the legal
Yeah.
staff. to
I don't know if
And I'm
there's
not looking
anything
at-
enforcement-wise we could do with
I'm
that.
not sure right off the top of my head.
I'm not saying that it's 3 days after. I'm saying that it's just a discussion that ultimately this isn't the highest and best use, and everybody agrees to that, so.
And also with it just seeing it in its current state isn't either, so yeah.
Right, it's an improvement by removing the parking, it's an improvement by activating, and obviously it would probably be very well frequented during good weather. So, yeah, it seems like it's a good stopgap. We don't want it to be here in, 2050, but and it probably wouldn't be because the city will continue to thrive. So, yeah, it doesn't look like something that I would be vocal against as long as it's understood it's temporary.
So we've seen containers in downtown because steel is an approved material. And containers are made out of steel. And we don't specifically reference containers. So you've actually approved some in downtown. But, obviously Bricktown is separate, and I must apologize, we're trying to get the handouts updated. That's why you don't have them yet for Bricktown, because unfortunately we did, 4 or 5 ordinance amendments to Chapter 59 that touched a whole lot of all of our districts. And so our goal is to get that done as quickly as we can. So you can actually have the Bricktown handout since you've never probably seen those before. Sorry.
Yeah, as you travel around the country and go to various districts, I think you've probably seen a lot of pop-up shipping container type entertainment developments. And so while we understand that Bricktown's desire is that everything always be brick, I think what we're trying to do is something that other cities have promoted and frankly other parts of our city allow. It just so happens that Bricktown, maybe when the codes were written and we're in the middle of a code update, who knows what the future holds on it, but we'd hope that we would allow flexibility for new design, new buildings to happen in Bricktown. That not everything has to be the exact same always.
One more question. I know you talked about Able and having kind of like a corral of sorts for serving alcohol. Is there a minimum height on the fencing? So because you just proposed
There
like
is,
this.
I don't recall what it is. I want to say it's 4 or 5.
Okay.
It's got to be something that locks you in.
Yeah, so, okay, lower than
Yeah.
8. Yeah, we're just looking at that rendering and it just being at that full height might be helpful to have it at the lower 4 foot, just to kind of also give a little bit more, or seeing the brick on that existing building just a little bit more.
So they don't look like they're behind bars?
Yeah, I think it's like 6 feet on just that initial rendering.
In a bar, not behind bars.
Yeah.
I got
That's
it.
right.
Could be a good name for a bar.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing.
Yeah, you can name it Behind Bars.
And I would think as long as that metal doesn't have all of that signage as sorts as well.
I would just say, hey, getting rid of corner parking lots, awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trying to activate and create places where people want to be, awesome. Knowing that the Olympics are coming, awesome. I would just say, think about how do we make this a place that people want to be? So fence heights, benches, even if it's landscaping. The Olympics are in 2028. If we're doing this now, we got 4 years to make some nice place-making ideas. I know this is a very preliminary sketch. That's probably more testing the waters on the containers. But I think we will be a lot more agreeable to containers if we also see other place-making strategies implemented.
Understood.
Yep.
Could you go to the corner rendering if you don't mind, Mark? Yeah, that one. I like that, but I also have a hesitation of like, what are we doing to this corner? Is there too much happening right here?
Yeah.
Maybe that's our view of the brick building on the corner that we need to preserve.
I think my
Those are
problem
kind of
is
the things going through my
signage.
head when I first see that. I like the color and the fun that the containers bring. I think that's, especially for like something we know that it will be temporary and is improving the space, I'm for it. There's something about that sign in that corner that gives me some hesitation though. I can't quite pinpoint it, and I'll let you know if I think about it and figure it out, but that's about one of the only things that I first thought when you showed this, speaking specifically to that sign location and the containers.
If you wake up at 2 a.m. with thoughts, feel free to email them
Email.
to Laura.
It'll be
Does it
waiting
just feel
for
like-
me when I get to work at 7:30.
I don't disagree with what you're saying. I wonder if it just kind of feels
Maybe
out
it
of
feels
balance.
tight, maybe right there.
If it was kind of balanced out
Yeah.
between the two sides, but neither here
Oh,
nor there.
to me, it's like it's heavy,
Yeah, it feels.
and underneath it looks lighter. So it makes me think that it's going to either sink down or fall over, maybe. I don't know.
I think it could be, so there's a separate container. What we had to do after looking at it was actually push it further in because of the power lines. But point taken, we'll certainly look at that. The one thing that's maybe not shown, the other thing that's been considered is putting a deck
Oh, it is a little
up
far
above
back.
with stairs so that
Oh,
you can
yeah.
get kind of patio space
Love
up there
that.
that looks back toward downtown. So we're playing with a lot of things, but to Eric's point, the shipping containers in that initial meeting was, it was a level of concern that we felt we needed some level of feedback on, because if it was like no, it's Bricktown, it's got to be brick,
Yep.
not an accent material, that kind of gives us enough of what we need to know to pivot or look at a different project. And we understand that today's opinions are not what are final or what will be said or guaranteed approval when we get to that stage, but we needed some level of confidence, feeling like we were at least headed in the right direction.
Yeah, I think if we
That's a
could,
great idea.
if we could figure out the temporary use piece, I think we're on a path forward.
All right?
Get rid of the parking lot. Good job. I hate that parking lot. It's dangerous. I mean, I walk there every day, so.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts, comments? Okay,
Thank you all for your time. Have
Thank you,
a
Mark.
wonderful Christmas and a Happy New Year.
you too. Okay. Administrative approval report.
We have several, as you can see. One I will tell you that's on here is the city's MAPS project to put out bus shelters, where currently we might just have a bench or there might just be a sign, and so we have some, and that's included in here. We had some solar panels going up, so that's becoming more popular. For the life of me, I can't remember the name of the restaurant going in, but we had signage that was approved on Walker next to Stella's because it's come out and they've said the name of it. I can't remember the name of it. It's a woman's name. But anyway, so we have another restaurant coming in where I think it was 1492 was before.
Lorna.
Thank you. Yes, that's it. See, it's a woman's name. It's Lorna. St. Anthony's is in here for some other projects. They're doing a lot of work there. Signs. Okay, and one very exciting thing on here is number 11. And you might say, why is that exciting? Because we're starting to see alleys being constructed down in the Little Flower Church area. And this builder has actually built 4 houses. He's got an application in for another one. He lives down there. His daughter lives down there. And they designed them with rear entry garages. So they're putting in the pieces of the alley so that they will actually be driving on a paved surface. And so we're actually now able to promote that with people because of something that the city has set up for that. So I'm real excited about that one. And other
The
than
city
that,
maintaining and,
the city does not maintain alleys.
yeah, so this is on the applicant to maintain and to construct the alley?
Correct. Now, there is a program, they're going to get partial reimbursement if they meet certain criteria. So it is based on the amount of investment that's going on in the area. It's based on the lineal feet of improvement, and it has to be to city standards, so they're concrete, and they have to get approval from Public Works. So, yes, hopefully we're going to see more down there. Absent any other comments, I will morph into next month is looking like it's going to be extremely ugly with a whole bunch of things on it. I shouldn't say it that way. There's a lot of exciting things coming in, but it's all coming in at the same time. And so we do have a meeting, and it's kind of early in the month. It's January 16th. Yes.
Yes, you're correct.
And so you'll get a quorum call for that. And no, we have not had any new appointments. There were several other commissions that had appointments on Tuesday. There was a lot on there. And so I'm hoping that they're working down the list and that they will be getting to us soon.
Okay. Comments from commission members? Okay, our next regular commission meeting is Thursday, January 16th, 2025. New applications were to be submitted to staff by 4 p.m. on Tuesday, December 17th, 2024. Revisions and information on continued projects are to be submitted by Thursday, December 26th, 2024. And if we have nothing else, we're adjourned.